This is Mallorca's 45, band of the Fridge FM, challenging everyone. Open their mind's eye. Listen to Lighting the Void with Joe Roop to gain precision for your third eye vision.
This is the Rogie Report News on the Fringe FM. I'm Jess Rogie. The National UFO Reporting Center and the British UFO Research Association have received numerous reports of the SpaceX satellites as UFOs. Frank Gonzalez tells Albuquerque's KRQE News what he saw.
Across the whole sky, from one end to the other. I guess I kind of lost sight of them right there, if it was cloudy or what.
What was his first thought?
Aliens. I thought it was UFOs, I really did. I never seen nothing like it. I thought it was UFOs.
And though they do look like they may be UFOs, they are satellites. SpaceX plans to launch batches of 60 satellites into orbit, with as many as 35 launches planned for this year. Astronomers have complained it's getting more difficult to observe night skies because of the satellite pollution. Elon Musk's company is testing techniques to address that concern. A facial recognition company digs up billions of photos from around social media and websites. The app works by comparing a photo to a database of more than 3 billion pictures that Clearview says it scraped off Facebook, Venmo, YouTube, and other sites. It then matches along with links to those sites where those database photos originally appeared. The size of Clearview's database is massive compared to others in use by law enforcement. The FBI's own database, which taps passport and driver's license photos, is one of the largest with over 641 million images of U.S. citizens. The Clearview app isn't currently available to the public, but the New York Times says police officers and Clearview investors think it will be in the future. Law enforcement officers say they've used the app to solve crimes. However, privacy advocates warn the app could return false matches to the police, and that it could be used by stalkers and others. They've also warned that facial recognition technologies in general could be used to conduct mass surveillance. And though some social media platforms ban crawlers, it is happening due to the fact there's loose and inconsistent privacy laws when it comes to AI tools. Clearview claims it only uses publicly available images. The European Commission has revealed it's considering a ban on the use of facial recognition in public areas for up to 5 years. Regulators want to work out how to prevent the technology from being abused. Christian De Huna, head of the private office of Giovanni Botticelli, European Data Protection Supervisor, explains.
What I think we argue is that we need to have this democratic debate, but also we need to look at it through the lens of existing legislation, notably the GDPR, and see whether or not the principles in there, such as accountability, privacy by design, the right not to be profiled and have decisions taken on you by a machine, to see how those rights are actually played out in practice and how they're going to be enforced in the next year or two.
This is the Rogie Report News on the Fringe FM.
Message is being broadcast by the Department of Defense of the Republic. At 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, multiple unidentified objects were confirmed to have entered Earth's atmosphere.
Discovery Houston, 20 seconds to LOS speed risk.
The first message that comes to you is you are a divine being. You matter. You count. You come from realms of unimaginable power and light, and you will return to those realms.
The vast stretches of the unknown and the unanswered and the unfinished still far outstrip our collective comprehension.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting from Forest Tower Studios. all the way from the Deep South. Now, here is your host, Joe Root.
Broadcasting from a shack on a hill in the Mossy Creek bottoms of Cane Creek, Arkansas. This is Lighting the Void, and I'm your host, Joe Root. It is Monday night, January the 20th on into the 21st, and we welcome back tonight magician and author, speaker, David Solomon. He's with us, so we're going to talk about how magic is real, manifesting, divination, you name it. It's a night of mystic discussion, so that's coming up here just shortly. I want to thank our sponsors at getthetea.com, ancientlifeoil.com, and also Metaphorical Archaeology. Barbara's doing a fantastic job over there at Metaphorical Archaeology. And if you've had an experience, a paranormal experience, and you've had some trauma or anything afterwards, and you need somebody to talk to, or you need some healing from it, you can give her a call at 214-995-3754. Also, head over to UFOseekers.com, backed and supported by the Fringe FM. Give them a follow on Twitter at UFO Seekers, and watch them on YouTube at youtube.com/UFO Seekers. So I hope you guys had a great weekend. I want to thank Dan Lopez, too, for coming out Friday night when we did that second reading of the Red Book, which was pretty intense. I got to be honest with you. That one was intense. And so when we do that again, I promise you, I'll take breaks and have discussions. Instead of reading that one time, man, I read the whole chapter. And I think actually went back through that chapter last night and realized how just deep this stuff is, man. Sometimes it just gets too deep and it makes you think too hard and you get a headache, but it's soul changing stuff, life changing stuff, that Carl Jung guy. So we're going to keep it up. We're just going to switch it up just a little bit. Weird stuff thing, man, happened in the news today. Also, I want to talk about, it was kind of strange, but I thought it was crazy enough to mention, and I saw it. I saw it on, where did I see it at? I think it was Coast to Coast website. On their news, and it was, usually I don't even talk about the news anymore unless I see something that's kind of crazy, but there's like a human body farm was discovered that these domestic cats have been breaking into their facility in Colorado and feasting on the remains of the test bodies. Now, this was reported in the Journal of Forensic Sciences in the November issue, but there's a facility in Whitewater, Colorado that has, I guess, human bodies or something, and they observed and recorded at least 2 instances of feral cats eating the remains of their test subjects. And they said that behavior is rare, and it resembles the activities of wild bobcats who also scavenge at those places. But the behavior patterns of the domestic cats seem to match those of bobcats, is what they're saying. So, yeah, stop leaving your dead bodies out where cats can get to them. But body farms are increasingly being used to study how human remains decompose in the natural environment. And this research is obviously used by forensic scientists as well as archaeologists and anthropologists to reveal clues as to how the human body decomposes. And I just thought it was funny that somebody walked outside or wherever the bodies were and saw that the domestic cats were feeding on them. I mean, that's pretty insane. But, and a reason why I bring that up too, the biggest reason why I bring that up is because I've been keeping a stouter look at my dream journal, and I really want to talk about what's in my dream journal, but it's almost like it wouldn't make sense to other people, but I've been having some big breakthroughs, almost like somebody is talking to me in my dreams, man, that listens to this show, I swear to God. But I did have a picture, like this flash in my mind, and this was just the last dream I had, of a cat eating a body. And then today, I swear on everything, when I'm looking at the news, that popped up. Feral cats were eating on human bodies. So I just thought that was kind of weird, right? But weird things happen in synchronicities, and that's why we're studying this stuff with Jung. So David Solomon is here with us. And if you guys remember, we had a really good conversation last time, and he's had over 22 years experience as a magician, and he has studied and practiced in Hermetic, Kabbalistic, Wiccan, Daoist, Vedic, Tibetan, Yogic, and Shamanic traditions, along with experience in Qigong, Nei Gong, acupuncture, and various forms of meditation. He's the founder of Magical Golden Age, which is a website and community providing education in the science of applied consciousness, a term he uses for magic, borrowing from Arthur C. Clarke's definition of any sufficiently advanced technology, is indistinguishable from magic. Now, having experienced over 300 miracles and siddhis, including telekinesis, weather control, rapid healing of wounds, precognition, animal communication, profound synchronicities, and rapid manifestations, David teaches in workshops, personal training, and healing sessions, and at spiritual retreats and power spots around the world, with the next occurring in Bali from June the 18th to the 22nd. He is also the author of Magic is Real, How to Create Reality, Manifest Miracles, and Make Spirituality Fun Again. He's active on Instagram via @SorcererDavid, and will be building 3 temples along with major contributions to a new city of Atlantis in 2041. What's up, David, man? It's good to have you back on the show.
Hey, Joe. Thank you. That was a wonderful introduction. And hello to everybody who tuned in the first time. And if this is your first time, I really look forward to connecting with you, to being of service, and to covering everything from a woo standpoint and, where I can, a science standpoint. Because as you mentioned, Joe, magic is technology we all don't fully understand yet. And the more I dive into this, the more I realize we actually do have understanding of a lot of this technology and how it works. And that understanding is being suppressed less and being promoted more. As I hear about it, even just the stuff I've learned since our last interview, it's really astounding how much, compared to our current worldview, magic there is in the world. There is that we can do, that we can experience safely, holistically, empoweringly, and my favorite, in a way that's fun.
Yeah, fun. That's interesting that you put fun to it, because when we talk about magic quite a bit, it tends to be one of these like real serious subjects, doesn't it? Where everybody takes it super serious, and it's deep.
Magic, it is really important to realize the amount of responsibility that comes with the amount of power when you learn what you as consciousness inside a human body, who doesn't always have to be inside a human body, can enact in the world. And so, there's driver's tests to give drivers permits. We take most of that for granted. But in the cases where somebody's not a stable, safe driver, driver's licenses are restricted, if not revoked, when somebody is shown to be a danger to others. And, in almost significantly reverse popularity, almost everybody who can and wants to, in most areas I've seen, is able to drive. But magic is just starting to become a bit more widespread. And the seriousness of most ancient and even modern texts comes with the fact that, it's a similar attitude to driving, and maybe even less popular, but more palatable in a direct sense as martial arts. A good teacher will not teach a student that lashes out in anger. It's just not wise or healthy for the population. And so the warnings, the seriousness, the intellectual depth, the requirements, the veils of mystery, the restricted access to mystery schools, all has traditionally been because to people at large, we're less aware, less awake, less enlightened, less responsible. Now, for a lot of various reasons, a lot of the spells that work, and I'm using spell as an umbrella term for programming, if you like the Matrix analogy, reprogramming reality, or any word in any tradition, but just to be simple, spell. You could say it's applied intention or ritual or law of attraction. Any successful spell, combining all those terms, is a way of affecting the world around us. So we could talk about magic super casually. We can use chill language. We don't have to say thee, thou. We can use contractions, right? But if we don't take it seriously, then we might not only hurt others, but we could hurt ourselves. And so the mystery in mystery schools, the part of it where things were intentionally kept as mysteries were for the protection of the population at large and for individual practitioners. So I always like to share how to do stuff safely and why it's done a certain way, rather than be one of those people who just, writes a book of spells and then, people do something and it might work, it might not, it might work much more strongly or have other effects. If you take a supplement, you know what's going to happen. If you get a surgery, you hopefully know what's going to happen. If you do exercise program or change your diet or get gene therapy, or, you know, go to grad school and live your life for 20 years in a certain profession. All those things change you and change the world. And magic's in the same boat. Just the possibilities are so much more varied. So the seriousness is warranted, but the language could be a lot more lighthearted. I'll give you credit for that.
Well, you know, something too is, as far as the society at large goes, if you go to, now Shutterstock is like a place where you can get pictures and stuff, right? And everybody knows that about Shutterstock. But if you go to their blog shows that the number 2 creative thing that is being used right now is in the occulture. All faiths and old beliefs are enchanting millennials and Generation Z, showing that there's a renewed interest in mainstream channels on social media, all about, you know, magic, mysticism, and more. It is the number 2 thing that people are pulling pictures off of the internet to post. That's big, and that Shutterstock is huge. So there's a lot of people that are getting
awesome.
involved.
I wasn't aware of that. Thank you for letting me know. You know, it's one thing to be ahead of your time, but it's another thing to be just in time. And
right.
It's exciting because this stuff works. You know, it's not just a flower child hippie art phase. People are realizing it. One of the most popular shows is The Magician. Season 5 just premiered today. And the first 4 seasons and the 3 books were excellent. And the fact that Harry Potter got so many people to read, like, we're shifting into a magical age, and coming out of the Kali Yuga, we're shifting towards the direction of a golden age. So acknowledging that, realizing that, accepting that, jumping into that is how the name Magical Golden Age came about.
Yeah, isn't that interesting though? You know, it's like, why is that? Are we really starting to realize that? And also, is that a dangerous thing? Now, I want your opinion on this. I did a project with the listeners because I wanted to show them that there were energies that were real, that divination was real to some extent. So we did this project where we kind of went on YouTube and listened to tarot readers talk about our sun signs. And the thing, what you'll see is that they're all telling you kind of the same stories about the energies. But what I found is it started freaking people out because all of these different tarot readers are interpreting it through their lens. So they're making decisions and making their own decisions about the energies. And I started thinking, so what's really going on here? Like, we're realizing that there's some of these energies that are playing out in our lives that are real that we can tap into, but we can't let other people interpret those energies for us or make decisions for us in a way. I think we got to put our own lens on it too. What do you think?
Well, I think ultimately, Joe, it's a matter of qualifications. You know, if you have a good friend and your friend is throwing up, if you really know a lot about the body and you know a lot about the situation, you know if it's likely a severe emergency or if it's just something small like a hangover or maybe morning sickness and what you need to treat it. If you don't know squat and you look up videos on YouTube, it depends on how qualified those speakers are, right? If you get a really qualified speaker and they seem to help educate you on the situation and what you do actually works and was a good solution in that case, then that's probably a reliable speaker. The issue with magic and the magical arts and the non-physical fields and astrology in this case too is there's non-physical vibrations that are being interpreted by human beings that have various levels of experience and various levels of skill. Right. And at the time of the reading, various levels of clarity. And based on their own healing journey, various levels of perceptual distortions based on any unhealed wounds or biases. So it's not to say that we shouldn't learn. Absolutely we should. But until we build and verify the skill, verify it with a master astrologer who has shown time and again to be legit for over 30 years, and we confirm with somebody like that we can interpret accurately, that our intuition about these things is accurate, I think it's fine getting advice from somebody else. The issue with astrology, though, is 1/12 of the world's population is not going to experience the same thing. Whether it's Western or Vedic or Chinese astrology, we all have unique circumstances. And there's also certain errors in astrology that have been corrected over time. Different satellites, different mathematical solutions, different translations of ancient texts. So somebody who knows all that information, just like a heart surgeon who knows, all the meridians and energies of the body versus one who doesn't, the first one's going to have an advantage, assuming all of the knowledge of them is the same. So, if you have an astrologer who knows the correct translation, the correct formulas, the correct alignments, can specify in the video what is universal and what is an influence, and isn't trying to be sensational so you watch their channel more, but gives it to you, real and straight, then sure, that's a great, reliable person. But because we have, if 1 year is 365 days, and in 10 years, and then 100 years worth of people, say, that's 365 times 100 divided by every single minute of every single day, plus all those lunar phases, for a YouTube reader to be accurate to the population at large. So it's a relatively difficult thing.
Right.
What I think you could find, though, is if you analyzed, seriously analyzed every single thing each of those 10 people said, and found, say, 4 areas where the overlap and consensus were high, that's something you could rely on. If you look deeply into these 10 people's backgrounds and maybe got a reading from them and maybe rated all their accuracies and just listened to the top 1 or 2 people, you'd probably get more value from it.
Yeah, I think
it's a bit of a project, but it's a lot of trust to place.
Exactly. Yeah, I think what I was trying to prove with that was that the energies, like this story that we're all going through, the archetypes and the energies and stuff are there, right? So all I wanted people to see was that, okay, you're seeing all these tarot readers and astrologers pull the same cards, pull the same stuff, and not so much pay attention to their interpretations, because, especially like in tarot reading, you'll hear them say, well, you're probably dealing with a Gemini, Libra, Aquarius, Virgo, Scorpio, Aries. And, what they're doing is they're interpreting energies, and then through their brain filter, they're trying to interpret the story. And I'm not saying that their story is not accurate, but you know what I'm saying. So what you're saying is right about that. Like, we should be really discernful when it comes to who we listen to as far as that kind of advice. But I guess what I was trying to prove, David, was that it was real, right? And that's what we're talking about tonight. Like, some of this stuff is real, and if you pay close attention, you can see that it is real,
Yeah, very true. And just because, it's not maybe as real as special effects on TV and in movies, doesn't mean there isn't a reality to it. And so the question is, how do you discern real from fiction? And once you have that discernment, how do you use it?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Now, talk to me about this project that you're working on. We talked about this last time, and I kind of want to brush over this again, where you're setting the stage for something pretty big, right? Like a new city of Atlantis. You had 3 temples that you talked to me about last time that were dedicated to certain things. If you don't mind, could you tell us about that again, and where you at with that?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So the temple specifically, I wrote about in Magic is Real, chapter 13, The Future of Magic. And in that chapter, we looked at why Thoth, why Lakshmi, why Aphrodite as collections of energies representing the advancement of the understanding of the science of magic, teaching healthy, liberated, full, holistic, safe sexuality, and thriving in all those dimensions for people who do. And all the topics related to wealth, abundance, money, and finance, and the spiritual connection and meaning and healing of all that stuff with Lakshmi. And working with the divine energies, we talked a lot about that in the last show. So just for an update, I was having a conversation with a great essence, a great massive consciousness that lifted me to a higher state, and that was Lakshmi. And it was a 5-6 minute conversation about my life, certain choices of direction, several people who reached out to mentor me and ways to support them. And I shared a lot of gratitude, and there's a lot of acknowledgement with that and with those energies. The second that conversation ended, I turned away from my altar and walked across my room. And right when I walked across my phone, sitting on my desk, it rang. And it was a friend named Jimmy who was working with the highest level spiritual priestess in Bali, who wants to build a Lakshmi temple in the U.S. and wants a U.S. citizen to build it. And he wanted me to, talk about building it. And he was launching a business in a very healing and therapeutic cutting edge industry related to certain forms of non-psychoactive cannabis, like CBG, which is new, and CBD, or at least newly understood, and that he would fund it. And that was very exciting because, thinking about building a temple, that could be $100, $200 million project if you want to have a lot of land, quality building, a staff that can be of service. Temples can get donations, and that's great, but something will be done when there's funds in the bank. And to see a way of that happening practically, of the universe just kind of, delivering on a silver platter a timeline where that could be, that was really exciting. So aside from that, it's one of those things that I know when I live in alignment, the supporting the elements will come. And when they start doing, the first thing I'll be working on for that temple is putting together a committee of people to look at, what makes a temple the greatest type of temple in the world, what makes it welcoming and non-offensive and, to a rational degree and available to all the people in an area where it is. So the Lakshmi Temple is to be in Los Angeles. And I think in general, it could do really great there. But having not spent my life building temples, knowing other people have, those will be the first few people on the list. We'll also be looking for a few people who really want to be devotees to wealth and abundance overall. Lakshmi is one visage of the goddess of wealth, of divine energy in that realm. In a Hindu tradition, Kubera is in the Tibetan tradition. So looking at many traditions and many cultures to see how these vibrations can be adapted and accessible as well, along with practical teaching, instruction, and things like that. So once the team is built, we'll do things like, looking at different locations, and synchronistically, that information I think will just come, and just doing it at the right healthy pace. So I don't have anywhere near a timeline for you for when doors would open. I'd love to, but for anybody who wants to stay in touch and get updates, you can go to magicalgoldenage.com, and there'll be a little pop-up to join Wizard School. And whether or not you'd like to do that, where you get email updates, you can always hit contact on that page and email me, and I can give you updates further, because sometimes things can move very fast.
Fantastic.
It can be a little while before things move.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I hope that comes to fruition, and I hope I'm alive to see it coming to fruition. Listen, guys, we're going to take our first break. Look, the website is magicalgoldenage.com. We're with David Solomon tonight. We're talking about that magic is real. How do we create reality, manifest miracles, and make spirituality fun again? We'll be right back.
This is Corbin, son of the one and only Joe Roop, and you're listening to The Fringe FM.
Have you suffered in silence or experienced stress from a paranormal experience? Even if it happened 20 years ago, when thinking or talking about it today still makes you feel sick to your stomach or makes your heart beat faster, or you suddenly can't breathe. Maybe you even feel those old familiar signs of a panic attack trying to reach the surface. You could have unprocessed emotional responses. Those reactions of terror and trauma are no different than living through a horrible assault, childhood abuse, or a terrible car accident. It can be nearly impossible to find help. The very instance of seeing a ghost or encountering a cryptid could be clinically described as seeing or hearing things that aren't there. You could be considered psychotic, or at best, you're just not taken seriously. Out of a growing mountain of research, the National Institute for Integrative Healthcare showed that 8 out of 10 veterans who completed just 6 one-hour EFT sessions no longer tested positive for PTSD. If you've had paranormal trauma, you can contact Metaphorical Archaeology by calling 214-995-3754. Again, that's 214-995-3754 for a discreet consultation.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation, and Angioprim is the result. A safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slow circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now to angioprim.com. That's ANGIOPRIM.com. Or to speak with a trained consultant. Give Angioprim a call at 954-882-7221. That's 954-882-7221.
Hey, Fringe FM listeners. Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or no Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of the Fringe FM by calling 701-719-3971. No smartphone app or internet needed. Saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Call 701-719-3971. That's 701-719-3971. Listen to the Fringe FM on any phone, anytime, anywhere.
Do you want to know the truth? Are UFOs real? Are aliens visiting Earth? Are governments around the world hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO Seekers, official partner of the Fringe FM, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Join us as we investigate locations like Area 51 by subscribing on YouTube at youtube.com/UFO Seekers.
Okay, here we go. AncientLifeOil.com. AncientLifeOil.com. Now this is for CBD. AncientLifeOil.com. Again, for CBD. Where do I get CBD? AncientLifeOil.com. It's pretty good stuff. Organic, non-GMO. We are the Ferrari of CBDs. AncientLifeOil.com. You know, they say when you mention a person's name 3 times when you first meet, that you're going to remember. So I'd say to you, nice to meet you, AncientLifeOil.com. It's AncientLifeOil.com, right? Nice to know that you help people. AncientLifeOil.com. Think about this. Occasional stress, occasional anxiety, occasional inflammation, occasional stiffness, and intruders that get you down. AncientLifeOil.com. Okay, so I'm going to give you a fact for the day. So Ancient Life Oil does not help you with business deals. Hold on a second. If you feel better, it could help you make a better decision. Okay, I'm wrong. Just remember to go to AncientLifeOil.com.
All right, everyone, this is Justin from the UK. Excuse the chitty. If you're into the Fringe and you want to hear the brass tacks, my old china plate, Joe Roop and his guests on Light in the Void will open your mince pies. You need to shut your north and south and use your 10-speed gears and listen to them bubble. You could hear a Barry Crocker, no Brussels, but he ain't no holy friar. Anyway, you beat a Barnaby Rudge and take a butcher's.
To call Joe, pick up the phone, dial 1-800-588-0335, toll free from the United States or Canada. You're listening to Lighting the Void Radio.
All right, welcome back to Lighting the Void. Our guest tonight is David Solomon. The website is magicalgoldenage.com. Listen, if you guys can, right now we're kind of at red alert because of January. We got all these renews we got to do with the apps and domains and stuff. So if you can donate, please donate. You can go to lightingthevoid.com. Go down, there's a button that says donate. I think there's one on the footer too, and as well as on the fringe.fm. Also, if you want to, if you can, we have a listener, Lily, who's a listener of the show, who really could use your healing prayers right now for her family. And we like to look out for us void walkers. So especially all of you void walkers, please send your healing vibes and prayers to Lily and her family. All right, so David, I want to, before we get into a little bit more about what you're doing here, I wanted to express something that now that you and I have discussed the increase of popularity of the occulture and magic and stuff, and it's good to make it fun. But I think it's important also to talk about just a little bit, just to brush over how this could be dangerous for as far as if we don't know what we're doing. Because you mentioned that earlier, and I've had some experiences with a few listeners and a few people that have messaged me that have had some pretty rough experiences, and I think it's from dabbling, you know. So what are your opinions on how dangerous magic could be if we're not careful?
Well, Joe, think about chemistry. If you wanted to do a chemistry experiment at home, you would think about what you want to do, and you would look at what you need to do it. And if it's something that a lot of people have done before, you would see some warnings. So you want to make a volcano science fair experiment, or a high school project or elementary school project, baking soda vinegar, easy. There's so much info on that. If you want to do a ritual where you call upon a god or goddess, or call upon elemental energies or angels or archangels, that's introducing way more variables. If you want to say an incantation in a language which you don't know, by an author who you think you can trust, and that incantation offers some type of a trade for something dear to you, for something that you might want in a moment, but that might not be a huge scale for your life, but you're emotionally charged, so you feel like doing it, that can have major consequences. So it's all about having a realistic outlook and knowing what you want to do and why you want to do it, and getting information from a trusted source. Once you do that, you really can do anything that you're capable of. And the nice thing about the current explosion in magical education and technology is there's more trusted sources. There's more people like myself who are in the public eye, who, has a lot of findings against negative forces in his books. And, I talk a lot about light magic, and I work with light energies. And if I ever, said something that was, dark, or that advocated harm, or that was really bogus, word would get out, and I would face whatever consequences professionally, as well as karmically. But I think professionally makes a lot of sense, because if you see anybody who has a wildly successful show on magic, or teaching on spiritual concepts, and they're in the public eye too, likely they're more trustworthy than an author with one book, and you can't find them anywhere. You can't meet them, etc. So, just like if you wanted to learn, knife throwing, or, really anything that, could be cool, could be useful, could have consequences, you just want to find a good teacher. I don't know if knife throwing was the best example, but, you could talk about wrestling, you could talk about martial arts, where there's a lot of potential for strengthening the body, changing life, and you just want to know that you're doing it right, and you're doing it safe, and you're doing it properly. But once you figure that out, and that's not too difficult, it just becomes a matter of realistic expectations and projects. Most people won't be able to levitate within the first 100, if not first 1,000 hours of spiritual work. Maybe after 10,000 hours, focusing on that and the path to that, sure, I think that could be possible. So what's more realistic is increasing the probability of getting a job, or doing something to clear out the energy holding back your confidence, or putting out a field where there's energies that bring about more peacefulness, harmony, and joy. So the place where you live, the place where you work can be better to be at, more enjoyable to be at. Doing magical workings to find lost items. This is all relatively beginner level stuff. And it's good to practice where you're at. And so anybody hearing this, likely, unless you've done 100 rituals or magical workings, in, one rating scale, you could be a beginner. And so you want to look for things according to your ability, and do them in a way where you know what energies are going in, what consciousnesses are involved. Is it just you or is it others? And what's a realistic expectation of the result? If you read a book on backflips and watched videos, but had a very weak core and tried a backflip over concrete, that might succeed or it might have consequences. But, if you train for, 100 hours and condition and do it with good supervision of, 50 times over, 3 to 5 months of building up, then sure, you could do it on your own. So same with magic. If people don't get, if you were to try a spell, and again, substitute that for any word I mentioned earlier, ritual, intention, etc., and that spell, say, didn't work or felt like it worked 5-10%, all that means is you need to grow in skill, and possibly work on your field, do some healing, do a few other things. So the nice thing about magic is once you take care of the warnings and the cautions, it opens up a lot of doors in life.
Yeah, so that makes good sense. Like, don't try to get, another thing too, is I say to people, and I'm sure, I don't know, I mean, everybody's got different, I guess, dogmas on this, but I say, look, don't be casting spells on specific people. Like, if you want a job, then there's definitely like magic you can do to get a job. But don't like curse your ex-boss because they fired you. Like, that stuff is, I mean, I don't know anybody, and I'm sure there are people, okay, but I don't know anybody who's proficient in cursing without having to deal with the karmic backlash of that. And as a matter of fact, I read an article about a woman that does it for a living. I need to find it. And she knows, she specifically states, I know when the magic is working because bad things happen in my life too. And it's like, even good or bad, I think we should stay away from directing our magic at specific people or being baneful about it. But that's just my opinion. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Oh, yeah, for sure. If you deal in poisons, you're around poisons and you inhale poisons, and that'll mess you up. It's in some way. This was taught in the Hunger Games. So I think for anybody who's drawn to dark magic, and, let's face it, all of us in our heart of hearts, except the purest and purest of souls. Even there's stories in Jesus where he got angry and, did an outburst. I don't think he cursed anybody, but, I think all of us, when some period in our life where we were darker, we were more depressed, we were more angry, we thought somebody really hurt us, maybe they did, and we wanted to hurt them back, or we felt justified, and we used whatever language to justify it. In this 3D world, if you slash somebody's tires or shoot them with a sniper rifle, maybe just in their kneecap, right? Not to kill them, but to really mess them up.
Right. Okay.
Or, stole from them, or spread rumors about them, or punch them in the face. Whatever vindictive action somebody's, thought about in their heart of hearts, stealing their mail, I don't know. They knew that if they were caught, there would be consequences, possibly severe ones. Magically, you're dealing with higher dimensions of reality. And that's not just a phrase. And I'm not just cocking that off to like physicists who prove stuff on paper with math. Like, this is legitimate. There is an entire plane of existence called the astral realm that deals with energy, chakras, meridians, and it's where karmic energies move. It isn't the origin of karma, which I say in my book, Magic is Real, in the first chapter, is more 5D. But if you look at, the magical equivalent of slashing a tire, like a minor annoyance, a minor expense, possibly major, depending on the situation, say in the 3D world, you could do that without getting caught. In the 4D world, that energy is out there, right? You're going to carry that energy with you, and people who are sensitive are going to know. People who are very psychic might know, the details, but not everybody is very psychic and good and accurate with, that open of a field. But you're going to attract certain energies in your life, and those energies might mean something comes back to you 3, 5, or 10 times, depending on, various factors. But it's also going to change who and how you are. In the Harry Potter transmissions, it said, murder tears the soul. And I think for anybody in this life who has, killed another living thing, it affects you. It stays with you, whether that thing is a human being or somebody else. And it completely affects you for life. Murderers have said this. So I draw that analogy because if you want to figure out a thing, you want to see what continuum that thing lies on. And in this case, it's the continuum of doing harm to another. And if you look at an extreme end, like, somebody murdering somebody, of course that has major consequences. So at the opposite extreme, maybe just glaring at somebody or thinking angry thoughts about them, that's also on the continuum. Wishing hateful, negative, spiteful, harm, bad things on somebody is sending certain energies to somebody, which affects your energy field as well. So when you hear people talk about love, and Marianne Williamson saying, if you have conflict with anybody, pray for them for 30 days, and after a month, they'll change or you won't care. That's a great strategy. Because if you feel in your darkest part of yourself the desire to lash out at any point in time in life or a different lifetime, and you get to a point where you want to heal, you want to forgive, you want to cleanse, you want to shift, doing something like that, sending love, sending positive energy, will not just heal the relationship, but it'll heal you. Whatever happened has already happened, and all you have is your experience of life. So why would you choose to add anger to that experience?
Exactly.
If you had the choice, you could add neutrality, peacefulness, love, happiness, joy, right? It might take some work, but that's what the path of being an alchemist is. And yeah, eventually the work takes less time, it happens more quickly. And then if you keep doing it, you could be a blissed out yogi and feel just nothing but love and joy all the time. And you could choose to work or choose not to work. But, that is ultimately in how I teach the purpose of magic. Magic isn't just to be a more efficient human at getting what you want. Magic is the carrots on the stick of the ladder to enlightenment.
Wow. Well put, man. Very well put. And I can tell like you're one of these type of people who definitely are looking to grow all the time, right? Because that's how I am too. And so I think if we take the time to learn about ourselves and more, and that's through, magic or life experience, friendships, relationships, everything, and we're willing to go inside ourselves, we can see that there's definitely something divine about us, and that's what I've been trying to work on since I started the show, man. It's like figure out what the human potential is, and here you are talking about a golden age, like a magical golden age that's coming. I mean, you really believe in that, don't you? Do you think that's really coming to the earth eventually?
I do. If you look at a lot of trends, you can see how the world is getting better. I'm not talking about conspiracy theories and mainstream, government supported news. I'm talking about, advanced technologies that are cleaning the plastic in the ocean. The founder of Fortnite using his billions of dollars to replant trees and protect endangered ecosystems. We're talking about the benefits of 3D printing and AI and drones to deliver food and internet to people who need them. And I'm looking at the sheer number of people who are connected on the internet or by the internet, so essentially our global civilization, who want to make the world a better place. So many people are talking about that. For the 3 or whatever percent it is, people who are sociopaths and whatever political power they have, and whatever anybody wants to say about the elite or government or shadow government or cabals or any of those, dark words, that stuff's been coming out in the open. That stuff's kind of crashing down. So yeah, there's centralized authority and power in Russia and China. At least that's what our American news says. I haven't read those newspapers from those countries and those languages, so the truth of that stuff, who knows? Propaganda has always been a thing. But I believe that our life experience is a combination of our attitudes, perceptions, what we focus on, and immediate surroundings. Are there problems in the world to fix? Yeah. Are there some big ones compared to 10 years ago, 100 years ago? Sure. But overall, the positive far outweighs the negative. Now, defining a golden age and saying what year do we predict will hit it is a completely different story. So if you're imagining like platinum crystal castles everywhere, heaven on earth, no crime, everybody loving and levitating everywhere within 20 years, that's less likely, I think, to be a universal thing. But is that on the continuum? Sure. Will that take us 1,000 years or 10,000 or 500? That's a different conversation.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And I almost feel like, that the more people that do this the right way, the more it works, because if we can, and I don't know if it's really some ancient power that's always been here, or if it's what Jung calls like the collective unconscious, because if we as a society start believing, and I mean everybody, start believing in our own potential, in our own divine nature, and we start doing these things, then it becomes more real. It becomes more, I guess, it manifests more, faster, right? Like faster. And you talk about that too, quite a bit actually, how we can manifest things, speed the process up. There's ways of doing it. Is it doubt that is the one thing that really holds us back? Subconscious doubt, even, maybe.
Well, if you're saying that from your experience, and that's true for you, everybody has a different constitution. And, we all have different strengths and weaknesses. We all have different wounds to heal. We're all attracted to different things. You might be more drawn to things related to personal power. Some people might be drawn to ways of restoring natural ecosystems. And instead of doubt, they might feel primarily held back by fear of oppression or by a sense of something else, right? It depends on our story. So that's why a magical curriculum is best individualized. So, I have a wizard school online. I have a book. There's a lot of stuff a lot of people teach online. A lot of it's good, a lot of it's bad. But working with somebody or working in a team or in a school, you can get it individualized, customized, and personalized to you. So if your self-doubt is something that you need to heal from an earlier memory in life or a collection of memories, that's part of your curriculum. That's a prerequisite for you for certain types of magic. And if you don't honor that prerequisite, then that doubt, that break in your system will be reflected everywhere and likely hamstring your results. So a big part of being an effective magician is healing, just like being an effective athlete is healing any scar tissue or old injuries that could affect the performance that you want to.
And it also, like, what I've noticed too is if you care about others, which I hope you do, I hope people do for the most part, is your own problems like that you're trying to heal. They end up hurting other people too, if you're not careful. Just, it's like projecting, I guess is what Jung calls it. They end up hurting others, and then you got a problem. Like, you get this domino effect thing that happens. But I don't know why we don't see that. I think there's still some fear about it, right? Like, I think there's still some fear, like, hey, if we've got people out there messing with magic and it's getting increasingly more populated, then what we're going to have is some type of evil thing that's going across the country. Now, this usually comes from a religious aspect, but not necessarily. I've also found that some people that are just full of fear are really worried about this because they're worried that we're letting in things or opening up portals, stuff like that. You know what I'm saying?
People who are full of fear project that fear onto everything. Maybe not everything, but at some level, a lot of stuff. So, the vibration you're coming from affects everything you see and affects everything you're drawn to. The people living in fear look for stuff, read stuff, think about, remember stuff that's worth being afraid of. And is it smart to be cautious? Sure, with anything. But if there's somebody focused on one human, not original language, perfect translation of an ancient text, but one human opinion from a religious figure that warns in a blanket warning against magic, or else some other blanket warning, dark, scary fantasy bad thing will happen, that's just bull. That's a remnant from the Dark Ages where certain groups in power wanted to keep people ignorant and scare them away. That's partially a remnant of things that were told to people who weren't responsible with magic to scare them from doing it. And so there is actually a purpose in it. You do want a 3-year-old to be scared from running across the street, no matter what their fantasy is, if they don't look both ways. And, ideally if they're 3, they probably can't do this, and maybe if they're 5 or 6.
Yeah.
So fear does have its place, but it can be overblown. So the difference, I think, between fear and intelligent caution is you can have a conversation with somebody and you can understand cause, effect, probability, various factors, and the risk scenario of something to be cautious about. But fear, plain fear, aside from all the mystical stuff I could say, and all the emotional stuff I could say, if you talk to somebody who's full of fear, you might soothe them, but their fear is a pattern wired in them that will eventually come back as worry, anxiety, paranoia, whatever. And that's not usually something you can talk somebody out of unless you really work with them very deeply. somebody's fear is not rational, then, the conversation as a whole isn't rational. Same thing with caution. It's a similar word. And if somebody chooses to allow fear in their system because they want that emotional response to be afraid of something, like say somebody was addicted to a substance or a lifestyle, and they, experimented with different ways, and eventually they had to be totally abstinent because if they encountered it again, they would have a relapse and, downward spiral. And that person allows themselves to be afraid of their former addiction so they don't, get on that train again. That's a case where, that's a limited case where certain types of fear could be healthy at certain stages of development. But, what you focus on expands in your awareness. So does it make sense to be logically cautious based on what you're actually doing? Sure. Does it help to have unrealistic, emotional, shotguns across an entire field of possibility? I personally don't think so. Not for everybody.
All right. There you go. So, and no, Night Stalker, that wasn't a shot at you, brother. I don't think that you're afraid of everything. But that's funny that you say that in the chat room. Hey, look, if you guys want to call in, I will go ahead and open the phones up if you want to ask David anything since our second conversation with him. It's 1-800-588-0335. That's the call-in number. We'll be right back after these messages.
This is Crow 777, and you are listening to The Fringe FM.
You can tug all day long on a carpet that's been glued to the floor. Then you hurt. There are many strong glues out there. Let's see, there's liquid nails and Gorilla Glue. You ever try to remove 3M 5200? That adhesive is strong. Then there's bathroom caulk, silicone rubber, adhesive tape, super glue, flex tape, and stickers. Graffiti. Scientists have come up with glues that stay stuck and can't be removed. Until now. Until Handyman Formula by Bond. That's right. 95% of adhesives become unstuck when you spray Handyman Formula directly on them. Just spray, wait a few minutes, and remove. It's amazing. Most adhesives become unstuck when you use Handyman Formula. Visit DeBondCorporation.com or MCMaster.com. Call 561-575-4200. This stuff really works. Handyman Formula by DeBond, a great Christmas gift.
Why is it we're not very good with our health regimen until it's too late? We don't put oil in the car until the engine blows up. When the body's out of balance, your health is not so good. Give your body some love. Log on to GetTheT.com. That's GetTheT.com. Try our Life Change Tea, which cleanses you from harmful intruders. A clean colon is one of the ways to bring the body in balance. We also carry organic supplements to help you get where you need to go. So do your body a favor. Log on to GetTheT.com. That's GetTheT.com. You can even visit our sales page to save some dough. Does anybody call money dough anymore? Anyway, if you're looking for short, helpful health tips, go to YouTube and punch in Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now. So, log on to GetTheT.com, shop, get balanced, then learn some cool tips at Health Matters Now. You'll be glad you did. That's GetTheT.com.
I'm Ryan Gable, and I want to remind you to keep your radio, phone, tablet, or computer tuned to The Fringe FM, and visit the website, thefringe.fm, to listen to the entire lineup of shows. You can also catch my broadcast, The Secret Teachings, Monday through Friday, beginning at 12 a.m. midnight U.S. Pacific Time, right here on The Fringe FM.
Alex X. Hi, I'm Alex Exum, and you're listening to The Fringe FM.
This is Reverend John M. Polk. Please visit me at johnpolkmedia.com and visit my show, Quantum Hologram Matrix, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, every Tuesday on thefringe.fm.
Is that
that a new music app?
Yeah, check it out. Surfer Music Discovery. It links to thousands of online stations, but the twist is you see the song names and artists that are now playing live.
That's different. No guessing. Looks like a waterfall of music.
So many formats. Rock, oldies, country, R&B, jazz, and a whole lot more.
How's that spelled?
Surfer. S-U-R-F-R.
Is it expensive?
It's free. No need to sign up or sign in.
Get the Surfer Music app free from Google Play or the App Store.
Ew, yuck. They're unhealthy and gross. Bugs, I hate bugs. We keep a clean home, but occasionally bugs show up. Well, I found something that is tougher than bugs. Orange Guard. From contact, it kills bugs. Plus, Orange Guard kills hidden bugs and keeps new bugs away for weeks. I know. I use Orange Guard. Plus, all of the ingredients of Orange Guard are on the FDA generally regarded as safe list. Orange Guard may be used around food, humans, and pets. It promotes a healthier planet, and here's a bonus. Orange Guard cleans where it's sprayed. Plus, it comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Orange Guard.
You can get Orange Guard at Ace Hardware. And listen, folks, Orange Guard is tougher than bugs, and it's safe to use. Go to orangeguard.com. That's orangeguard.com.
Hola, Fringe listeners. This is Dave Cruz of Beyond the Strange, and you're listening to The Fringe FM.
You're listening to Lighting the Void. The call-in number is 1-800-588-0335. If you would like to text, you can text in at 501-777-5631.
Welcome back to Lighting the Void. David Solomon is our guest tonight. Author, magician, speaker, also a healer too. You know, I wanted to talk to you about your miracles because in your bio, I don't even think we got to talk about this last time I talked to you, that you have witnessed lots of things in your life that validate magic and beliefs, and you talk about several miracles, several siddhis, several things that have happened to you. What is, like, if you can give us an example, like what is one of the biggest things that happened to you in your life, you know, that you're comfortable sharing with us, that made you realize just how powerful this stuff is?
I'd say, Joe, that was, there's a healing one and there's a meteorological one, and I always share the second one because it was so immediate and undeniable. But I usually share the healing one as well when asked this. The meteorological one, you know, the night that I really, really awakened to my identity as a soul beyond one lifetime, I was in deep conversation with a certain divine ancestor about why I was here in this world, in this body, in this timeline, in this life, with all the details involved. And they said, well, this is a school. And I said, that's bull. That's cliche. I need something more. I need to know, like, why it's important and what I'm here to learn. And I was intuitively led very strongly to go outside. And so I walked into my backyard and I looked up at the sky. And there were maybe a dozen stars. You know, I live in the San Francisco Bay Area, so, you know, clouds, pollution, etc. And I shifted to a state of pure knowing that the sky was full of stars behind all those clouds, and that the clouds weren't really there, didn't really need to be there. And as I held that visualization, Joe, and that total knowing with all of my being and forgot my body, the clouds vanished, and they dissolved away. And not like dissolving one cloud over 10 minutes, but the whole sky cleared up in like 12 seconds, and hundreds of stars were visible. It was beautiful. I was just in awe. So I picked up my phone, I called my boyfriend at the time, and I said, hey, guess what happened? And I got really excited. And as I told him about it, the clouds came back and the stars vanished. And I said, oh, you know what? My ego just came back online. I want to hold this for a while. I got to call you back. So we hung up, and I was able to shift a second time, and the clouds dissolved a second time. And that story matters so much more to me than the others, because if you can do something, you can do it more than once. If something was done through you by divine providence or by beginner's luck, or maybe you did it but you can't replicate it for whatever reason, then that's not the same as having a skill, or at least developing a skill. So because the repetition of this, and it was on such a massive scale, it's really one of my favorite experiences. And because of the visual anchor, the memory stays. Because the memory stays, I can tune into that state of consciousness at any time. That's not to say I can replicate it yet, but I can know how far along I am from it. Sometimes I can reach that state in 3 hours of meditation. Sometimes I don't reach it for a month. Sometimes I reach it multiple times a week. It really depends as far as that zone goes. But I think that story was really, really powerful. People have seen materializations in my presence. That's pretty cool. And a lot of these are fun and exciting. Yeah, things appearing out of thin air.
Wow, really? Like what? Like what? If you don't mind me asking.
I'd love to say it's what one of my teachers said is like a diamond necklace, which he kept, not sold. Some people might think he would do. Maybe if it was 10 diamond necklaces and he was building a temple. But
right.
I have a thing with Nerf darts. It's the weirdest thing. It's not like a holy crystal. Whenever certain synchronicities happen to me, or I get in a certain state or phase in life, Nerf darts materialize, and they're almost always blue with an orange tip. And I believe that's because the first time I, as an adult, did telekinesis, it was with a Nerf dart, where I made it move several times without touching it. And I developed such an appreciation for it that I picked it up and took it home. And since then, like 25 Nerf darts had appeared in random locations, not necessarily where kids would bring Nerf guns. And it was almost always like one Nerf dart. And there was a scenario where I had 3 with me in my car, just driving to Stanford. I took 2 with me and left the third in the car. I walked up to a building I hadn't been to in months. I knew as I was on campus that the third would just appear. And as I was walking up to this building, that a Nerf dart of the exact same size, shape, and color had appeared in the sidewalk right up in front of the door. No Nerf darts anywhere else, pure visible. People were playing with those things, and they picked them up. This one was, blue on bright white, so it would have been easy to spot. And I just picked it up and laughed. And when I got back in my car, the one I left in my car was not there, which was hilarious. So I was walking around the community house where I live and run, Palo Alto, and there was a woman I was talking to about magic. And as we were walking around the house, right as I was about to walk into the front door, a Nerf dart appeared behind me. She just saw it appear and just drop to the ground. And a minute later, as I was walking from the inside of the house and out the back door, it happened again. And she was like, "What just happened?" And I think that's really cool because, it'd be fun to materialize a Porsche or an elephant or have a person teleport appear in front of you. But a lot of us, our rational minds won't accept that. And so it doesn't appear in our experience, or if it does, we forget it. But something that's meaningful to me and that's physically innocuous, not like a cat or a basket of kittens, appearing in front of somebody else, that's kind of cool. I wasn't holding my hands, zapping energy into a space, materializing an object intentionally, like a pile of diamonds or a bouncy ball or a quarter. That would be fun, and that's something I'm working on over time. But I have experienced this and a few other things materialize too.
That's a pretty cool story, man. My favorite story was from Grant Morrison, and I want you to tell me what you think about this. Anybody can watch this on YouTube as well, because he's more of a chaos magician, right? So he's a comic book, I guess, if you're not familiar with him, illustrator and storyteller. And he wrote this series called The Invisibles, which is kind of like a series that talks about occult stuff too. But he fully admitted that he was trying to manifest things into his life in the comic book. Like there was a certain type of, I guess, a girlfriend he wanted. So he drew the girl out. But then he also drew into the comic book about the character having a lung disease, which was kind of stupid. And he found himself in the hospital with a lung disease. And he also dated the girl that he drew, like 5 different girls, but they were all resembled this girl that he drew, but he just couldn't get along with them or something. But I think it's funny that what you're talking about, materialization, because for some reason sigil magic tends to work well with that. I think when it's done right. Are you familiar with sigil magic at all? Do you practice that?
I'm familiar with sigil magic quite a bit. I practice a version of it, but I don't really. For me, I don't feel it's the most efficient type of magic to do, but I know quite a bit about it. And it sounds like this guy had a lot of power. I'm curious if he got a handle on it and what he chose to do with it once he did.
Yeah, I don't know if he's got a handle on it yet or not, because I've had some chaos with that myself too. I thought, oh yeah, this is cool. We can manifest reality. That's what he's thinking, and change the world. Like he had that same kind of vision. But at the same time, I think the universe kind of manifests stuff in the most natural way that makes it look like a coincidence. And if you aren't careful, it could come through in some negative ways, especially if you're not specific, So I don't talk about sigil magic as much as I used to, because it tends to, I'm not saying it backfires all the time, but it did with me and a few other people as well. I'm more into, the self-development type of stuff, like growing magic, or what some people call high magic. Do you practice that as well, like ceremonial magic?
I define ceremonial magic a little differently from the other words that you used. But I think it's critical to have strong faculties. I think it's critical to be clear within your system. The reason that magic may not have worked for you or backfired is because you might have simply had unresolved issues, and those issues went into the spell in some way. And what can happen in these types of scenarios is you're playing with energies, you're moving energies in your system without really completely having, you could say, clear pipes. And so because of that, the energies that come through are going to reflect your own internal state. And, no magic is inherently more or less effective than another, all other things being equal.
Right.
A lot of it is up to the magician and the alchemy inside of them. Personal development is a huge, critical prerequisite part for that very purpose. So your magic can be predictable, so your magic can be more effective. Just like doing backflips. You don't want to do backflips if you're injured and could possibly get more injured.
Right. I get what you're saying. Yeah. And I know when I say like that word high magic or whatever, I know some people get offended about it. It's just something that people call it, they called it that since the beginning of time, but it's not really like higher than lower magic type thing. It's more like alchemy, like the alchemical process. But I am starting to integrate some more modern things, and that's why I like talking to guests like you that have come from many traditions. It's got a lot of backgrounds in this stuff, so you kind of see the fundamentals and things. Like in martial arts, at first you start learning moves, right? But as you get higher in experience, you start learning like the fundamentals of how this works. And I think that's kind of what's going on here, isn't it? Are you there?
Yeah, I mean, learning the fun. Yeah, I'm here. Learning the. I don't know if you were going to continue. Learning the fundamentals of how something works is really key. I mean, we're eager to try this stuff. A lot of us have wanted magic for our whole lives, and then once we realize it's real, we're like, oh, I'm going to go do a spell and it'll be perfect. But how often do you find a new skill that has a lot of potential that's very complex and master it immediately? Doing a skill means developing a skill means doing, hundreds, if not thousands of actions and projects and experiments. So being a skilled magician doesn't mean you try a couple things. It means you try a couple hundred things. And if the foundations and the fundamentals include breath work, include clearing your emotional body, clearing past traumas, developing a psychic sense, trusting that psychic, knowing what you're doing, knowing why you're doing it, you cover all that stuff, and then your magic will just flow no problem. And you can still do magic at any point in time. Just the question is, what types can you do and what can you not do? For myself, I do the type of magic that I practice every single day. And there are certain topics that I know can manifest in about 20, 25 minutes of work. And there's others that feel like they'll take, significantly more than that. And there's reasons for this. And if you go in there with a strong and clear intuition, knowing this, you'll know that while you might have a lot of work cut out for you for more powerful magic, there's a lot that you could do now that would be successful. You might need to do trial and error until you get to that intuitive point. But, if you were to work with somebody, like if somebody were to reach out for me and say, I'd like to work with you and develop these skills, I'd say, great. If you're serious about that, let's plan for 6 months to a year. Because then we can really take the time to cover all these bases and maybe even find a specialty. So, right. There's somebody who reached out to me to heal his cat. His cat was dying. The cat was losing its hair. This guy couldn't really afford medicine. He lived in just tough circumstances. So I taught him a couple things, and within 3 weeks, his cat's hair was almost 90% grown back, and it was healthier, it was more vital, it had more energy. This was giving somebody 3 or 4 lessons. Now, I think they might have had some aptitude for this, for them to be able to do that so quickly, but there are some things which do come easier and more quickly than others. So it's worth knowing what types of things you can do. Sigil magic is one type of magic that, ceremonial magic usually involves more ritual. It can incorporate sigils, but you can do sigils on their own. Ceremonials are often more involved. And you could get the same result from sigil or ceremonial magic depending on your skill. Depending on your constitution, which means all the things you want to fix and all the things that you're good with, you might be more adept at sigil compared to ceremonial or vice versa. And when I say vice versa, I don't mean those two. I mean, 300 different magical traditions.
Gotcha. Okay. So what's your opinion on...
So, if you were to go...
No, go ahead.
Sorry, just to finish that. If you were going to go to college, you might have math aptitude in your constitution, or you might not. And knowing that determines, how you spend your time academically. Magically, it's good to have the same knowledge of yourself if you don't already. It's good to learn it.
So what it was, okay, so do you think it's better because I wrote this article on Medium about should I join a secret society or magical group, right? Like the Golden Dawn or a Wiccan coven or something.
It's on Medium. It's not so secret if you end up joining, is it?
Yeah, right. Well, no, I mean, I'm talking about, I wrote an article about should I join that or not? Not me, but like people ask me that question all the time. So I kind of gave my opinions about it. But is your opinion more of it's better to work one-on-one with somebody, like you were just talking about, that kind of knows what they're doing, so you've got this one-on-one relationship with somebody, or to join a society of people where they have this structured system, right? Is it better or worse, or does it even matter?
There's 4 levels. The first level is studying enough, practicing enough on your own that you're going to do it. You could get flute lessons and buy a flute, but unless you actually want to play the flute, you probably shouldn't commit to that. And you can always stop. So the first step is to know that you're committed. The second is to work with somebody one-on-one. Once you work with somebody and they've cleared most of the strongest parts of your stuff, then you should do a group training, group healing. So anything else in your system that could come up within a group, and healing and magic is more effective in a group overall, that you get the experience of working with the group with somebody who has a lot of experience leading and guiding groups. I've done this multiple times. So your evolution can accelerate and with other people. And you wouldn't want anybody in that group with an extreme propensity to curse people that annoy them, which is why you would want people in the group to be pre-screened. After that, after you've done work within a group, then working in a group overall is totally possible. And I did this in my healer school with people who were in that same school. After several months together, we started doing things, but small things, like channeling high-level light beings together and doing energy work on people, like multiple people treating one person. We didn't necessarily do a major summoning that I would recommend off the bat, but after that school was finished, people would get together for certain things, but everybody had different interests. So it's always good to have a group leader. I think joining a school like the Golden Dawn, it does depend on the members and the leadership and everything that goes along with it. But I think that same 4-step process should also occur. So say, you're at a festival, you get tapped on the shoulder. This happened to me. Somebody said they were in the Golden Dawn, and I knew that was an invitation to me to look into it. Later in life, somebody invited me to a certain temple where I realized I could join. And neither time it really felt right. Maybe for the work that I do, maybe for certain other circumstances. But I think if you're listening to this and you're thinking of joining a group, let them come to you. When the student is ready, the teacher will appear is a true thing in this. And get to know the people you'd be learning from most. Maybe they're the most experienced people in the circles. Maybe they're formerly a teacher. And I'd say, if possible, work with them one-on-one at least 10 times. And once you really get to know them and they really get to know you, you'll have abundant time to learn what the program will do for you, what's required of you, how it could change you, who else is in it, what the vibe is like, all that stuff. And whether all of this involves a time or money or energy or other commitments, enrolling in a school is a big deal. For people who choose to go to college, it takes a lot of research, and it's a major life decision. Magically, I'd say you could hold it on the same level of importance, with the results varying based on the type of group. And the same level of importance might seem like a really big deal for people who can get 6-figure jobs after going to good universities, and people who struggle with 4- and 5-figure jobs who don't. And of course, that's stereotyping. A lot of people do just fine without college. I know a bunch, especially out here in Silicon Valley. But a school like this will shape you. It will reshape you. You're opening your energy field to everybody in the space, and the people who are skilled can and likely will affect your energy field. If you go to a place of ill repute, or where the ethics are questionable, what those leaders and experienced people could and would do to you and around you and with you might not be something you would choose, but you also might not be aware of it. Just like an expert salesperson talking to somebody with very little knowledge of persuasion psychology could more likely manipulate that person. So, going to a school is awesome because you can heal more quickly, learn more quickly, build a community of great magicians, learn credible material that's been time-tested, and likely learn much more quickly with all the right safeguards, ideally, in an ideal sense. So, that's the whole package to it and for it. I don't currently have a school where a lot of people interact together. That will happen in time. But I do think that a lot of those schools are excellent. I don't recommend schools unless I get to know somebody individually because it's such a deep personal fit. But for people who reach out to me, once I get to know them a bit, I might recommend a certain school for them if I think it's a good fit. There are schools with a public reputation. The 3 schools I've heard good things about that are large and public and might resonate with a few listeners here are the schools in Damanhur, which is a school of the Atlantean tradition where I studied. They're in near Turin, Italy. They have 3 big programs and weekend programs. They're a beautiful school, beautiful community, wonderful temples. They have good wards too, so only well-intentioned people find out about them and are able to go on there magically. I found this out. There's the Barbara Brennan School of Healing. If people are focused on being a healer, that's in Florida. That's quite good, very notable, very effective. And then there's Alfred Kingsley College in the UK, I believe, and that's a multidisciplinary school. There's a number of other schools out there, but those 3 I've heard good things in general about. I've only studied at Damanhur, but one of my teachers in a school I spent a lot of time with thought highly of Barbara Brennan, and I've met individuals who studied at Arthur Kingsley. I believe Arthur Kingsley is the name. I might be butchering a bit, but I think that's the name.
Wow. Okay. See, I went to, the only thing I ever went in was like Freemasonry and then the Golden Dawn, but that's pretty interesting because I've never heard of, I've never heard of those places. That's fascinating to me.
Yeah, there's also the Modern Mystery School. They have a show on Gaia, which is excellent, by an ex-NASA astrophysicist named Teresa Willard. I think that's a great school for theory. The practical exercises I've seen, and I've watched a lot of their episodes, they don't give great, detailed, deep practice. They do short, the ones I've seen are shorter guided meditations and general principles and like things to do. So an ideal school is something to do in person and is something that will lead you to build skills, and where the teacher in the community can help you heal stuff you have to heal.
Okay. That's cool. That's pretty interesting. That's because, I think that's kind of what changed in my life when I first went into Golden Dawn school, I guess you could say, or group or organization. I went there with a lot of doubt because I wanted to know if magic was real. And by the end of the week, I was being initiated because I saw and felt so many things, I was having so many experiences. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about your experiences too, because I'm kind of intrigued with that. You talk about guided, I guess you do guided astral journeys. Is that right?
I do.
And what are these about? Is this like path working where you take people through like an out of body experience, or is it more like an internal visionary type experience?
Well, Joe, that's a matter of perspective. For people who don't believe in the astral realm or who don't have a significant experience and a felt sense experience, it's visual. And it is true that what we see, we perceive through our third eye. So in that sense, it's also visual, our inner eye. But technically, I do take people out of body. I do take people to a state where they as consciousness can go to another location than where their body is. Sometimes that location is on this planet. Sometimes it's in this time. And other times it's elsewhere, another time. And it can be really fun. It can be really liberating. There's a lot of great places to meet spirit guides, to connect with energies and power spots. It's fun and it's liberating, and it's really darn useful because in some senses, people who are really good at astral projection are also adept at certain levels of psychic abilities and manifestation.
Fascinating. Yeah, that is really cool stuff, man. We've got to take our halfway break. Listen, I know you guys got some questions, so you can call in at 1-800-588-0335, or if you want to, you can drop into the Fringe FM chat and just make sure that you put at Joe Roop on there, and I will ask the question to David himself. We'll be right back.
Thanks for listening to this broadcast. Need another late night fix? You can tune in every weeknight to Lighting the Void with Joe Roop on the Fringe FM.
Hi, this is David Oman with HouseAtTheEndOfTheDrive.com. You're listening to KTLK, the Fringe FM.
This is the Rogie Report News on the Fringe FM. I'm Jess Rogie. The National UFO Reporting Center and the British UFO Research Association have received numerous reports of the SpaceX satellites as UFOs. Frank Gonzalez tells Albuquerque's KRQE News what he saw.
Across the whole sky, from one end to the other. I guess I kind of lost sight of them right there, if it was cloudy or what.
What was his first thought?
Aliens. I thought it was UFOs, I really did. I never seen nothing like it. I thought it was UFOs.
And though they do look like they may be UFOs, they are satellites. SpaceX plans to launch batches of 60 satellites into orbit, with as many as 35 launches planned for this year. Astronomers have complained it's getting more difficult to observe night skies because of the satellite pollution. Elon Musk's company is testing techniques to address that concern. A facial recognition company digs up billions of photos from around social media and websites. The app works by comparing a photo to a database of more than 3 billion pictures that Clearview says it scraped off Facebook, Venmo, YouTube, and other sites. It then matches along with links to those sites where those database photos originally appeared. The size of Clearview's database is massive compared to others in use by law enforcement. The FBI's own database, which taps passport and driver's license photos, is one of the largest with over 641 million images of U.S. citizens. The Clearview app isn't currently available to the public, but the New York Times says police officers and Clearview investors think it will be in the future. Law enforcement officers say they've used the app to solve crimes. However, privacy advocates warn the app could return false matches to the police, and that it could be used by stalkers and others. They've also warned that facial recognition technologies in general could be used to conduct mass surveillance. And though some social media platforms ban crawlers, it is happening due to the fact there's loose and inconsistent privacy laws when it comes to AI tools. Clearview claims it only uses publicly available images. The European Commission has revealed it's considering a ban on the use of facial recognition in public areas for up to 5 years. Regulators want to work out how to prevent the technology from being abused. Christian De Huna, head of the private office of Giovanni Botticelli, European Data Protection Supervisor, explains.
What I think we argue is that we need to have this democratic debate, but also we need to look at it through the lens of existing legislation, notably the GDPR, and see whether or not the principles in there, such as accountability, privacy by design, the right not to be profiled and have decisions taken on you by a machine, to see how those rights are actually played out in practice and how they're going to be enforced in the next year or two.
This is the Rogie Report News on the Fringe FM.
What's up, Joe? Hey, man, I just wanted to say your show, dude, keeps getting better and better and better. I love Lighting the Void and the Fringe FM.
The Fringe FM isn't just a radio station. We also provide services for all your audio production needs. If you are interested in live radio or pre-recorded podcasts, we're here to help. We even do audio enhancements and voiceovers if needed. If you want to do a podcast or live radio show and even want the option to syndicate on terrestrial radio, from simple audio file enhancement to live production and call screening, we have you covered. We have worked with some of the best professionals in the business in order to provide coaching instruction for content creation, show structure, and more. Contact The Fringe Digital Media for more at info@thefringe.fm. That's info@thefringe.fm, or call 501-777-5631 for a consultation.
Hey, Fringe FM listeners. Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or no Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of the Fringe FM by calling 701-719-3971. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. Saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Call 701-719-3971. That's 701-719-3971. Listen to the Fringe FM on any phone, anytime, anywhere.
Alex X. Hi, I'm Alex Exum, and you're listening to The Fringe FM.
Welcome back to Lighting the Void. Tonight our guest, David Solomon, practicing magician, healer, teacher, author. And like I said, you can put your questions in the Fringe FM chat. You can go to thefringe.fm/chat. Make sure you tag Joe Roop to ask your questions. You can also call in at 1-800-588-0335. If you can, please donate to the Fringe FM. You can sure use it right now, or grab you some swag from the Lighting the Void store at lightingthevoid.com. Just click on shop. And I want to thank Jess for grabbing a shirt, as well as I believe her name was Marley for grabbing a shirt too. So that's pretty cool. Selling more shirts. Nice. I'm working on the what is it called? The Void Walker Pinterest board where I got all of you guys and your pictures. If you do get any, like, it doesn't even if it's a sticker, I don't care. Take a picture of it. I want to see it so we can put it on this massive board that we're putting on Pinterest. And if you look up Lighting the Void on Pinterest, you'll find the Pinterest page as well. So, yeah, that was some pretty interesting information on secret societies and well, I wouldn't say secret societies, like schools of magic and stuff. And I think I've found more just personal production with this when it comes from working one-on-one with somebody, but I did start out like in a school, and I guess you're right. It does depend on where you're at. Like if you're a beginner or if you're trying to progress, but it does make me wonder about, well, why they don't last. And I'll give you an example, and I'm not talking about your school. Obviously yours is more advanced, but like a traditional, let's say a Golden Dawn school, you learn so much, right? They have all this information and you really learn a lot. And at least I did. And I really saw the reality of magic in the school. But what tends to happen is at the tops of all these schools, and it doesn't matter where you go, they tend to fall out, or there's like political stuff that happens, or the leaders of these schools get real, political, I guess you could say, and not politics, but kind of, I think there's some ego involved there. And so it's kind of like a paradox. These same people that are teaching you about your ego and all of this stuff tend to inflate it a little bit. And it's kind of perplexing to me sometimes, David.
You know, there are common traps on the spiritual path and spiritual traditions. And what happened in the case that you described is not uncommon to religious and spiritual groups. You know, if you are on top of the ladder, essentially, and you're not accountable to anybody, then you're more likely to abuse your power. It's just what happens in any type of field. If people haven't cleared their ego blocks and distortions significantly and sufficiently. So
Gotcha.
It's not about, oh, people at the top are going to, you know, something's going to happen no matter what. I think what's much more accurate is to say that if there's not checks and balances to power, and if there's the possibility that there's, I guess, respect given in a certain way or status given in a certain way where people are taken to have, you know, above average qualities in all areas, you know, there's really less safeguards. So the best way to do this type of a thing, by my limited experience, is to have a setup where no one person is immune. That's not to say that, you know, cabals and coups wouldn't happen and power struggles wouldn't happen and all that type of thing. But if you have a balanced system of power and accountability in really anything, power is much less likely to be abused by any one person. And even if there is a conspiring group, say, it's not as likely to have consistent issues as, say, one leader who couldn't be, you know, unelected.
Okay. I got what you're saying. That makes sense. Yeah. So, thank you for that. 'Cause that was the one thing that kind of bothered me about it. Now I was going to ask you about weather control. There was a question, right? Catalina's asking, how do you like to, what does it say? Like to control the weather? Do you like to control the weather? How does David like to control the weather? And then have you ever taken
I'm
any
guessing she meant, how do I do it and why did I do it?
Yeah, that's probably like, how are you doing that? Right.
Okay. So how I did it and why I did it. I did it because I could, and it was exciting to me, and the idea felt very fun, very fresh. I did it and I also did it out of a state of knowingness, because I know at the highest planes of reality, we are all one. All is one. All things, places, people, and times are one. And to me, high magic validates that. when you know yourself as the clouds and you pull yourself back from a certain location, and that is reflected in the rainfall stopping in that location, and you, who is also the body, mind, ego, soul personality of one lifetime, also experiences that, it anchors in the oneness. I think magic in that sense, if done at that level, can actually help anchor and speed up enlightenment. It's not to say it'll clear your ego of all issues, and there are definitely issues that can come up, and we've seen them time and again. People running down the street saying they're the Messiah, and maybe they can access that frequency, but if they don't embody it in every way all the time, which I haven't seen anybody do lately, that's a false claim. Not to say that that looking into that road of healing and supporting the whole world isn't worth it. It's definitely worth it. But the how is a mix of prerequisite skills and healing work, and just basic mechanical knowledge, along with something your rational brain can accept. So the healing work, I think we've talked quite a bit about, and I can go into more if you or anybody else has any more questions about it. The magical theory essentially is a systematic understanding of how a certain change can take place. So you do a certain thing. If you come from oneness and can move the clouds from oneness, there's a way to get to oneness. There's certain techniques that you can do, so you don't need plant medicines or mind-altering substances. Techniques through meditation and transcendent experiences, you can repeatedly get it in a state of oneness and hold it there. You could call these enlightenment practice techniques or anything else. And then how you apply them, at the oneness level, at the 90 level, it's, essentially what I shared, plus a little bit more. And at lower levels, a lot of shamans do magic through dance, through working with deities, through working with energies. That's working at 7D, 4D, maybe some 5D. There's a lot of systems too. There's a lot of rain dances, which if you learn it from a local indigenous shaman who has had success with it over 20 years, and you take the recommended practice and you do it, eventually you'll get some success, and eventually after that, some repeated success. So, doing, I'd say that I'd call that medium high magic, or high if it's very fast. Like, on a show, somebody snaps their fingers and there's a thunderclap. That's not really realistic. Most of the time, if that happens, it's a lucky synchronicity, which maybe the show is trying to convey, unless it happens, 20 times an episode. But
right.
As a high intermediate, low advanced level skill, affecting the weather is something to spend 100 hours on. It's not, 400 hours on. There will be a lot of other benefits to it, but it's not easy to explain in a 3-hour podcast, even if we spent all our time in it. What I can say though is you can devote time to studying success of that skill and building it in yourself, and looking at how could that time be filled, or reach out to me or somebody else, say, hey, can you train me in this, or can we talk about what training would look like? And you build that skill, and then you have it. And some people it might take more time, some people it might take less. Same as with the backflip or learning French or how to play Flight of the Bumblebee from piano.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. All right. So let's talk about this then. So that's kind of like a form of, it's not the same thing. So you're talking about becoming one with things. So when people do telekinesis, it's something that you said you've either witnessed or experienced. I guess we can clarify on that. Is that basically what's going on there? They're becoming one with everything, and then they can move the object, so to speak?
So magic there's a 9D system of magic, which I outline and draw distinctions between traditions. The oneness is a 9D working. Doing energy work is a 4D working. Working with the divine is a 7D working. Working with law of attraction, visualization, causality, karmic quantum stuff is 5D. And 6 and 8D, we don't get into a whole lot right now. We don't need to. So all of those ways are ways of affecting something. Now, I think 9D is the most efficient, because from oneness, you get all the other skills. It's one of the hardest things to do and to maintain. Much easier to be a skilled energy worker than, stay in the void or stay in unity consciousness while functioning in the material world. But is you're going to build a skill. You want to build the highest level skill you can that contains all the other skills underneath it. So, there's ways to learn how to do telekinesis at every dimension, at every step of the ladder.
Man, that just sounds completely, and and I've seen some pretty crazy stuff and witnessed it, but it sounds impossible to me. I'm just going to be honest with you, David. It just sounds out there, but it's so cool. I hope it's real, man. This is some heavy training. If it's real, I imagine. If you're
determined to see it, Joe, determined to see it, hunt it down and you'll see it, and then it'll be real for you. It depends how badly you want it. It's a rare skill to have somebody do it successfully and be willing to show people they don't know. It's just not commonly done in our current world for a whole bunch of reasons. People don't want to be kidnapped and taken to the lab. People don't want to be called crazy. People don't want to be asked for weird favors, like levitating cash out of a bank drawer, and a lot of people who develop that skill develop it either in secret, or it just comes naturally in normal spiritual development, and they don't care to be famous with it. So when you actually witness it, it takes some work to find people who can do it successfully, and that journey, just like Dr. Strange, to the Ancient One, can be transformative in a major way. Not everybody comes back the same from seeing it. It's a very significant thing, but it is very real. I say this soberly, practically, groundedly, and if you're determined to see it, you can see it.
Well, what are some of the things?
You don't need to have faith with something that isn't exclusive to one person in the world, and telekinesis is not.
Gotcha. So it's more, so you've seen more than just somebody bending a spoon, so to speak. You've seen people move objects with their mind, right? You've seen this.
Yeah. I've affected electronics with my mind. That's a meta telekinesis skill, which I think is more valuable because of the potential threat of AI. So, I've turned lights on and off. I've turned music on and off. I've turned fire alarms off. I could say it was spirit moving through me. Again, it depends on what D you're talking through. But I believe, as the vessel and as somebody who's consciously chosen to experience this, I can call myself the doer, and it's okay.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredible. I might get determined. I'm still kind of stuck on the out of body stuff, but I think after that I might go look into telekinesis, because that's just cool to me, man. Come on. Everybody wants to know how to do the Jedi stuff, and I think, there's an actual order too of Jedis. You know that? There really is. I looked into that.
I do. Do they practice advanced Qigong?
I think so. Yeah. I think that's exactly what they practice. Cool. So
enroll, buddy.
Yeah.
There's another school.
Yeah, there's another school. Become a Jedi. Yeah, that would be cool, right? The rapid healing of wounds is something else I think a lot of people would be interested in. How rapid are we talking about here, David?
Well, I healed a broken bone in half the speed a Stanford surgeon thought was possible. Somebody very close to me, I wrote about this in my book, was about to die from kidney failure, and 5 minutes after something happened through me, because that was a scenario I believe I, as the doer, did not have the skill or experience. And you could say faith in myself. I had the faith to start, but I know the actions felt much more than my normal, ego personality capacity. It was huge. In the case of, a sprained ankle, I healed a sprained ankle in about 2 minutes once. I've healed sinus infections in people in short periods of time. I've had teachers who, in Ivy League laboratory settings, cured mice of cancer repeatedly under stringent controlled environments in matters of hours. So there's a lot out there.
Wow. Okay. So it's just basically, once you witness it, it's a paradigm changing thing, I imagine. So what do you think is holding us back? Better yet, here's a better question. What do you think the potential of the human actually is? Like, do you think, I know, we can do telekinesis, we can have out-of-body experiences, we can manifest things and have synchronicities, but are we capable of more than that? Like maybe one day we can fly or something. I know that sounds wild, but
I mean, anything you've heard any mystical person do, any high-level saint, any high-level yogi, you can do. Those beings devoted a lot of time, and maybe they had a running start with past lives, but there's more information out there that are available to most of us than there were in times of legend. But Steve Jobs had left one book at his funeral, which is Autobiography of a Yogi, which was about a yogi named Paramahansa Yogananda, born Mukunda, traveling India and noticing people who had all these powers and materialization, you name it. And that was in this last century. And I bet you those people or their lineages, are remembered by more people than Yogananda, who wrote that very famous book, and supported by more than Steve Jobs, who was a pretty big name to support something like that. So, there's a lot of reasons why we don't seek it out. Cultural programming, cognitive biases, you lack of a good teacher, you name it. But everything you mentioned is possible. What is possible based on the highest level beings? Well, there's a being named Babaji who is said to be deathless, to heal people rapidly, to materialize palaces, to be able to pop in and out of bodies and stay in this world, to be able to heal anything instantly, to be able to perform resurrections. A teacher of another teacher of mine wrote in his autobiography about resurrecting a dead bird on a priest's window, and the priest said he went to rethink some of his education. So, it really depends on what people want to develop and why. You could say, "Oh my gosh, I want to learn how to be immortal. I want to learn how to perform a resurrection."
Yeah.
Well, that's a very advanced skill. If you want to make cutting down trees illegal unless you replant as many trees as necessary to maintain a balance that whatever that first tree did, that'll take 20, 30 years of work in the legal system, or a really powerfully excellent campaign over the course of a year, and a big fundraiser and a lot of lobbying, a ton of lobbying, right? So any big impact you want to make in the world is just a formula of time and skill and dedication. Now, that isn't to say that skill can be performed in every circumstance. I don't think every single person who's ever lived could be resurrected on a whim. But there are certain circumstances where it's karmically permissible, and it's within the ability of the being with that level of skill. But as I said earlier, we're changed literally with every thought. New dendrite connections form. Old ones are, supported to grow stronger more quickly. And the type of spiritual training that leads to those things, the highest types of magic, to heal a severed limb, to heal somebody from the brink of death, or an animal, or regrow trees rapidly, like very rapidly. I saw a video once of a woman blasting a seed with chi, and that seed sprouted to a leafy plant in the palm of her hands over the course of less than 5 minutes. That's a high level ability. Give her 3 days, would she have a, full-grown oak tree? Who knows? Possibly. So, doing this type of work changes us in deeper ways. And the type of person you are now will likely not be the same type of person after whatever amount of time you decide to develop for this skill. Say you're listening to this and you're like, I want to carve out 4 hours a week to developing magic, whether that's healing, meditation, practicing magical skill, and study, an hour a week of each of those, and see where I get in a year. You could get pretty far if you haven't really done anything yet. But those super advanced abilities, to give realistic expectations, likely not. And it's really nice having that perspective, because you're like, okay, well, maybe it would take me 20 years, but in 20 years, what kind of a person would I be if I had these abilities? What kind of a person would I be if I didn't have these abilities? So, you can take that exact same attitude of future forecasting to saving money, family planning, building skills, career tracks, education paths. And magic is, developing magic is just a life path. The potentials are huge. I believe it is the best path to take because it enhances all other doors. You just have to make sure you can do it sustainably while maintaining your life and staying rational, which means studying the science of it as much as you can and, generally being active in the material world. Not everybody likes that, but there are parts of the material world which are, enjoyable.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, for sure. But I find staying rational, if I was to experience all this stuff you're talking about, the word ration, like as far as, I guess you could say reason and rational, would be out the window for me because these types of things shift a paradigm, Like when I had the first out-of-body experience, every belief system I ever had went out the door. It doesn't mean they're not true. It just shifts everything for you, So it's hard for people like me to stay grounded when you're realizing that some of this stuff is real. If that makes any sense to you.
Well, it does because it shakes up our foundation of a solid, fixed reality based on the model of Newtonian physics we were taught in school growing up when we were impressionable and trusting everything. And it goes in the face of what we see in our average day-to-day world. But something happens once, it affects you. It affects the world. Nobody ran a 4-minute mile. Roger Bannister did. Now a ton of people do.
Yeah. I think, Rupert Sheldrake talks about that too. And he also
the morphogenetic field is huge. The more people who do magic, the more magic there will be, the more guests you'll have for it, the more searches you'll have for it.
Right.
So it's growing.
Yeah, it definitely is growing, man. More and more validation for sure, too. We got to take our break. We're already at the top of the hour here. Again, if you want to call in, it's 1-800-588-0335. For some reason, if that number doesn't work, you can try 501-424-5130. That number will definitely work. We'll be right back.
I'm Clyde Lewis. You're listening to The Fringe FM.
Joseph Roop is your host. Pull back the blinds and uncover the truth. This is Lighting the Void Radio.
You're listening to The Fringe FM.
Somewhere between abnormal and paranormal, there's a show called Into the Paranormal. I'm Jeremy Scott. Hear me live Saturdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 Eastern on the Fringe FM.
Hey, I'm J.M. DeBoard, and when I want to talk about dreams, I look up my man Joe Root and his show, Lighting the Void.
The Fringe FM isn't just a radio station. We also provide services for all your audio production needs. If you're interested in live radio or pre-recorded podcasts, we're here to help. We even do audio enhancements and voiceovers if needed. If you want to do a podcast or live radio show and even want the option to syndicate on terrestrial radio, from simple audio file enhancement to live production and call screening, we have you covered. We have worked with some of the best professionals in the business in order to provide coaching instruction for content creation, show structure, and more. Contact The Fringe Digital Media for more at info@thefringe.fm. That's info@thefringe.fm. Or call 501-777-5631 for a consultation.
Listen, I want to tell you about G.I. Joy from GetTheTea.com. It's the best alchemical concoction of goodies for your stomach and digestive system I can recommend, and that's all based on my experience. Packed with colostrum, acidophilus, aloe, peppermint, and turmeric. If you do your own research, then you know this is the bee's knees for the stomach and digestion. Now, due to Big Brother's ears and the eye in the sky, you know I can't go into the details about what it helped me with. All I can say is I got relief. It's non-GMO, no fillers, no preservatives, manufactured right here in the US of A, and delivered to you by the only people who stay on top of the game and are out in front. Go grab a bottle of G.I. Joy at GetTheTea.com and see what all the fuss is about. Again, that's GetTheTea.com.
Ew, yuck. They're unhealthy and gross. Bugs, I hate bugs. We keep a clean home, but occasionally bugs show up. Well, I found something that is tougher than bugs. Orange Guard. From contact, it kills bugs. Plus, Orange Guard kills hidden bugs and keeps new bugs away for weeks. I know. I use Orange Guard. Plus, all of the ingredients of Orange Guard are on the FDA generally regarded as safe list. Orange Guard may be used around food, humans, and pets. It promotes a healthier planet, and here's a bonus. Orange Guard cleans where it's sprayed. Plus, it comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Orange Guard.
You can get Orange Guard at Ace Hardware. And listen, folks, Orange Guard is tougher than bugs, and it's safe to use. Go to orangeguard.com. That's orangeguard.com.
Hi, this is Sammy. Join us in the Deep South as we're lighting the void with Joe Roop on the Fringe FM.
Right, me old Chinas. I know it's an ad break, but before you lot shoot off and make yourself a cup of Rosie Lee or whatever else it is you're going to sling down your Gregory Peck, you need to listen to me babble. If, like me, you found your way to Light in the Void via a downloadable podcast, you might want to take a butcher's at the Fringe FM Wind and Kite. You won't Adam and Eve how many other shows there are or what they rabbit on about. Ancient history, conspiracy, the consciousness, the esoteric, the occult, metaphysics, parapolitical, ufology, technology and spirituality, to name but a few. They got featured hosts like Ryan Gable, Jeremy Scott, Alex Exum, Tim Doyle, Cortana and Gigi, Susanna Ross, the Reverend John Polk, Michael Deacon and J.D. Lewis. You might find yourself listening to the thoughts and theories of the author of The Fish you just finished reading. Or you could pick up the dog and bone, call in and tell everyone your own beliefs or experiences. So do me a favour, before you put on the Ansel or crack open a bottle of vino or roll a joint, go to the Fringe FM and see what you're missing.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
You're listening to Lighting the Void. The call-in number is 1-800-588-0335. If you would like to text, you can text in at 501-777-5631.
All right, welcome back to Lighting the Void. David Solomon, our guest tonight on the program. Don't forget, Lighting the Void is here for you 5 nights a week, 9 p.m. Pacific to midnight. And then after, the Secret Teachings with Ryan Gable will be broadcasted. Calling number is 1-800-588-0335. You can also call 501-424-5130. I've got a question here on the text line that says, David, what would your guest have to say to someone that believes, let's see, someone believes to the point of knowing these things are true, but cannot seem to manifest any of it? Is it possible to have a lifetime of the knowledge, but be forced to believe in magic, but without confirmation?
No. Well, it is possible if you believe that that is your reality. You know, one of the highest principles of magic is belief determines what your experience. So I'd say if you believe magic is possible, but that you can't experience it, that's going to be reality. And your mind is going to look for ways, so your subconscious mind is going to look for ways not to experience it. And if you see it, you might deny it. And you may not even try. If you've spent 300 hours practicing magic properly from a good teacher and you've had nothing, then I'd say, maybe you should give it up and look for another direction. But when you're doing magic, and I'm going to talk about more popular 4 and 5D magic, working with energies, working with visualizations and law of attraction manifestation stuff, that's the most common magic taught right now. And the biggest types of most traditions. If you have an energetic block in a certain chakra, a certain energy center represented by physical functions, organ functions, personality, emotion, there's a lot of the chakras out there. Then say your block is in your third chakra related to your will, and this is specific to the person who asked the question, but it's universal for all of us. The energies, the chi, the prana that would need to circulate through your system for your will to exert change in the material world will be limited. If that chakra is performing at 50% optimal functioning, then that's going to hamstring you. And if you need 30,000 units of energy for a certain spell to manifest, and you're restricted, and you can only put out 15,000 units of energy, in this overly simplified example, you try your best, you won't succeed. You're going to have to clear that chakra. You're going to have to heal in whatever ways are associated, whether it's an experience, a trauma, a physical issue, or many other topics. So, same thing if you want to run a triathlon. You could have a good body composition, but a deep old injury might have some scar tissue that you might have to, figure out how to get rid of. Or you might just not be in shape, and you'd have to get in shape before you could do a triathlon. Like a normal one finishing in the, upper 50th percentile, or even upper 70th or upper 80th. So it's more complex. We're talking about changing reality through non-physical means for the most part. And if it were super simple to be successful, everyone would be successful. And if it were super obvious, everybody would know it, that it's true. So the nice thing about this life and this lifetime is all that stuff is shifting. It's getting easier to find out what blocks are in your system and get them properly taken care of at an energetic or other consciousness level. And it's getting easier to find examples of real magic. It still takes time and effort to find them and more to create them, but it's more possible than it used to be. There are reasons why it used to be less possible and common, just like there's reasons why people aren't flying all over the sky today, as they might in a few thousand years, unassisted by the obvious technologies. So there is something for the era we're in. You couldn't log on to the internet 100 years ago. Now enough people pooled together enough effort and technology where logging onto the internet is a constant thing. We don't even think about it. It's considered a utility in many places. So the state of the world, the energetic state of the world, the knowledge and pooling of knowledge, and your mental map of the world is something that is a combination of everything that came before and everything that's coming since. So being anchored in your here and now is a really important first step, and changing your here and now is an important second step. Focusing on what wasn't or what hasn't been or what couldn't be, that isn't focusing in the realm of possibility. That's discouraging, whether it applies to magic or baseball or piano or learning Chinese or doing a triathlon.
All right, fair enough. I believe you. You. I mean, it's one of those things too, I think, where it's almost like, I mean, I had my doubts about it, right? Like when I started studying this stuff, I had my doubts about it, but you can't help but witness it once you actually see it. I think the problem I find too, David, is explaining it. Take for example, like synchronicity, not explaining it, but explaining it in a way that it becomes convincing, because I can't explain a synchronicity where another person says, well, that's just coincidence. And you say, well, yeah, but it's happened this many times. And they say, well, that's just that many coincidences. It's almost like once they have their mind made up, there's no explaining it, if that makes any sense. Like the Amazing Randy kind of guy.
Exactly. Somebody who thinks there's no good people in the world, who sees people doing good actions, might say they're doing it for a selfish reason. And I know there's arguments that there is no true altruism, but I think there is. I think people can do things just to be nice because they enjoy it and they love other people and making people happy, not just people they're in a relationship with. So, but if somebody's determined not to see that, even if everybody else is seeing it and saying it's a certain thing, then to the person with that limited worldview, that's what their experience is. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, it could be changed, but especially for the person who asked the question and anybody who might resonate, if you're feeling like magic is not going to be part of your life experience, if you're okay with that, you don't need to do anything. If you're not okay with that, then this is the path to your liberation, not just related to magic, but related to anything in your life which you feel is out of reach. Going on an all-expense-paid vacation to somewhere tropical, right? A lot of people fantasize about that, but not a lot of people receive that. I know a ton of people who get gifted that type of experience.
Right.
So it's very possible.
Well, what are your opinions on someone like Crowley and Thelema, where it's all about, do what thou wilt, where love is the law, love under will, where you kind of just following your will, and that's the most divine thing to do. There's a lot of controversy.
Well,
there.
that's a very selfish teaching. I don't agree to that teaching. I think in a limited sense, that teaching is how everybody lives, because everybody decides what they want to do based on some framework of belief. But to have a magical system based on that without any ethical constraints, I don't think is good. There's a lot of people who say Crowley was Hitler's spiritual mentor. And, look what's said at the highest levels about somebody with that type of belief system. And just because Crowley was famous doesn't mean he's worth following. I tried reading one of his books once because we share a birthday, and I thought it'd be fascinating. And I feel like I'm trying to clean up some of his work, like be the light for the darkness that he spread. And I just couldn't get into one of his books. It was just, I'm like, this just feels so wrong.
Yeah, I think his idea was more like, if you put love under will, which is, to me, it would be that's backwards. But I kind of did read into that, and he was like, well, if you're doing your will, then you're actually expressing divine love, because the divine wants you to do your will. So when your will lines up with, I guess, the divine will, then that's what it is. It's the same thing.
Well, there's a divine in many places. The divine is a very crowded place. There are so many gods and goddesses, and there's so many demigods and goddesses. And sure, some of them are archetypes of each other. Like, there's Thoth and Hermes, same consciousness, different incarnations and eras and identities. But, the divine realm is a somewhat crowded place. So he could have been speaking true from a certain divinity that was a sociopath. And that's not to say that it isn't divine energies. It's just which divine energy. Even for people who choose to hold a monotheistic viewpoint, there are certain monotheists who believe God or goddess, or whatever word they would use for that, is benevolent and kind, and some who believe that singular god or goddess is malevolent and cruel and judgmental and demanding. There are deities or beings at the divine plane who are of all qualities. There's giving, kind, loving, compassionate gods of healing, and there's wrathful, vengeful, demanding gods of human sacrifice. So, if you work with a certain energy, just like if you hang out with a certain type of person, the energy will more likely affect you and become a bigger part of your life. If you hang out with somebody who volunteers a lot, has a healthy family, is good financially, is physically fit, is kind, is smart, is patient, is loving, it maybe has a few issues to work out, maybe has, maybe drinks a little too much, not to a crazy degree, but drinks, a little bit too much. Okay, so they might need to work on that. But if all their other positive qualities are there, that's the type of person, that would affect you, and those qualities would affect you in some way because you'd be around them. If you're with somebody who's gossipy, who's negative, who's complainy, who's vindictive, then that might bleed off onto you, onto your thoughts. And if you're around a lot of people like that, or a very strong personality like that, or if you work with or live with somebody with a strong personality, that will affect you too. Either you'll take on parts of that personality, or you'll compensate by strengthening other parts of your personality to, adapt. So if you work with a divine energy that's wrathful and vindictive, that's going to affect you in probably undesirable ways. If you work with a deity who's loving and kind and benevolent, like, Lakshmi or Aphrodite or Athena or Thoth or Krishna or Apollo, or Durga, a lot of beings I work with. Durga is a bit more of a has a lot more qualities of different sides. But if you work with most of those gods and goddesses, they're ones I consider safe to work with and okay to work with. If somebody who wants to work with a darker energy, just because it happens to be divine, you could just substitute the word powerful for magical purposes if we want to simplify things. And there's a lot of sources of power out there.
Like Odin. So you're saying there's all kinds of different gods and goddesses in the divine, right? I mean, that's blasphemy to a lot of people.
It's a much more complex.
Yeah.
It's a much more complex plane of reality than ours. I even think poly and monotheism are compatible. Monotheism is, a conglomerate of all the deities represented as one. Polytheism is, you could say, is different components of the one. And since all is one anyway at the highest levels, you could call 90 magic God as the totality of reality. But as soon as you apply a personality attribute or a name or a characteristic or appearance, you're shrinking it. You're anthropomorphizing it to something you as a human can understand. If there's planets full of beings who are shaped like triangles, and they have their own deities, that's part of the all and the oneness overall too. And if they give their deities, names and shape their deities like triangles or like squares, they're anthropomorphizing those deities in their own image. So just because something's powerful and massive doesn't necessarily mean it's right for you.
Gotcha. So you're not one of those. You're not one to work with any. You don't sound like the kind of guy that's willing to do any left-hand path stuff or work with any dark energies. Or what about the shadow face and stuff? People talk about, well, you got to face this stuff eventually. What do you think about
I don't work with dark stuff. I don't work with things that cause harm, or dark or traditional left-handed path energies. And anybody who wants to learn anything from me is, forever bound from being effective at that type of magic, because it's just corrupting. And I dabbled in it in my earlier days, and my life got messed up, and I didn't like it, and I swore it off, and I set up a few oaths to prevent myself from doing it. And now I just don't want to, because I know it's just in the core of me, it's wrong. Same with demonic devil stuff. It's just wrong. At like a deep visceral level, not like a moral finger shaking at you. It's like drinking rat poison is wrong, right? Even a couple drops a day, it's just not good for you. So shadow work is different. Shadow is a complementary component of your being, and it's worth dealing with, but it's worth dealing with and integrating properly. If somebody has an issue with anger, it's worth owning their anger and learning how to transmute that energy, respect it, feel grateful for it, know where it comes from, know how to work it, and dominate it rather than have it dominate them. It doesn't mean become an angry person and just be a jerk to whoever you meet, and that's okay because you're doing shadow work. It means, Saturday from 3 to 5 p.m., you're going to go into your anger, you're going to feel it in a container, ideally with somebody experienced, unless you're experienced, and you're going to come to terms with it, and you're going to allow the energy to be released, and then ideally do all the transmutation until you end up at genuine love related to the topics you're angry about with. That, I believe, is healthy shadow work, by combining it with light work and containing the totality. If you do a lot of light work related to the light side of anger, then okay, maybe you have some catching up to do, but you don't want to get lost in it. We have day and night for a reason. We have summer and winter for a reason. And that's not to say half of your time should be spent in shadow work. There are some magicians who think you should, and that's not what this talk is about. They have their own philosophies, and I'm not going to comment on those right now. But generally, we come out of the dark and into the light. I'm going to go back into the darkness every day in terms of just simple light. So I think for the average beginner to intermediate student, for every 5 to 10 hours of light magic, feel into it intuitively, 1 hour of healthy, balanced shadow work, as I expressed, is a good idea, is recommended, if you can end in love. You succeeded if you're not triggered anymore about that topic that you worked on. You didn't do it fully well if the trigger is worse or if the emotions are higher. If you did a big healing, you might need some time to integrate and be in controlled environments, like peaceful spaces where you can just calm down and get back to normal or nap and restore your energy. But I don't think shadow work should be a majority of anybody's time unless they're working with another person who's, very experienced.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Cause it's like, I don't, there's a lot of grimoires out there, right? You've seen that. And this is something that there are quite a few magicians out there that think this, I don't know if it's necessary yet, but it's definitely popular. And they want to work with demons or kings of hell or dark beings, and then get some type of either work a deal with them or get some type of mastery over them. And I always think, like, and you can tell me if I'm wrong here, that maybe we don't, I guess it depends on what level we're at, but maybe we're not as big and as powerful as we think we are sometimes. And maybe there are things out there that can get the better of us, and we just don't think they can.
Oh, sure. How many people get taken advantage of by Ponzi schemes and loan sharks because they don't really fully look into it?
Exactly.
Demons
Right.
that don't have a conscience, which is pretty much the definition of a demon. What's to prevent them lying to you? What's to prevent them from manipulating you? What's to prevent them from trying to seduce you? I don't think it makes sense to test your skill against those. There is writing and there are books that discuss this and how to do it, but I think it's stupid to do it without a teacher. I could use kinder language, but I just want to get real. Like, if somebody thinks it's smart to work with a demon on their own, or with any teacher with less than 40 years experience, inside a school where there's a ton of safeguards, that person is being stupid, and they're going to pay some type of price that's going to make them regret it. And regretting it means they wish they never did it. So if anybody listening thinks or knows somebody who is considering it and saying, oh, I think it's going to be worth it, think about that future where you regret it. You might know that's in your future. The best way to change the future is by changing the present, which is what you have the opportunity to do right now. And anybody who's ever done that, there's ways to shift into a different phase, into a different vibration, and heal. I don't really want to talk about breaking contracts because there's a lot of beings who would get mad at me for that. But there's different levels of power and hierarchy. Every being has a master, except for the highest high and the lowest low. But the highest high and lowest low are actually very close to each other, which is interesting because they're both very close to oneness. So, if you work with a consciousness, so David Hawkins has this enlightenment continuum from 0 to 1,000, and he went higher than 1,000 for certain non-physical beings like archangels. He put it, I think, 50,000, and 0 to 1,000 for humans. If somebody works with a demon who's like negative 50,000, like an archdemon or like a king of hell or whatever, and then they're like, you know what, I want to change things and I want to shift things. I'm going to work with 20 archangels or 2 archangels to balance out that vibration. Well, if you work with those archangels at the same time and intensity and passion and time that you worked with, the dark forces, I think that's a pretty healthy alchemy to get back to the light side of the force, to purify yourself, to feel good, and to, move on and, change your path in life. Just like if you ingest poison and it feels crappy in your system and you have to take it out, it might not feel good coming out, but, if somebody's 100 pounds overweight and they don't want to be and they lose 100 pounds, it doesn't always feel good, being hungry, working out, changing diet and lifestyle until that 100 pounds is gone, and then they're going to be really happy with themselves. So no matter how far you've gone down the wrong path, it's never too late to turn around. And the nice thing is working with the divine, the right types of divine, you can get powerful change very fast. A lot of high ascended beings, Jesus is mentioned a lot in this realm. And I've worked with Jesus before. I love Jesus. I've never called myself a Christian, and I don't now. Just as a being of a lot of light and love and forgiveness and mastery over dark forces, he's a simple, easy direction to start. And a lot of people have hang-ups about that. So, there's Krishna, there's other names of high-level spiritual beings. The Dalai Lama, he's pretty spiritual advanced. People could work with the Dalai Lama or Moses or, Allah or whatever they feel a genuine connection to. But there's ways of healing from that stuff. And when desire to work with those forces comes up, you want to look at what's the root of that desire? What's the why? What about your life do you want to shift? And, could you shift it in a more holistic way? If the answer is yes, and you've looked for help on the left-hand path, look for help on the far right, to balance it.
Yeah, that makes sense. It does. I'm glad you talked about that, because it is something that I think it's passed around as something that you have to do. I mean, even some Golden Dawn practitioners have told me, and that's like super traditional ceremonial magic, Western style. They're highly against it. They're like, why would you do that when you have like leagues of angels to help you? Why would you?
Yeah.
What's the payoff here, right? Are you just trying to get something material and you want to make a pact with a demon? You can manifest stuff just as fast. And even in my life, I can say that I've seen things manifest totally without having to make pacts with demons or whatever, So I don't find it necessary, but I'm not one to judge either, because I'm still on my path of learning about it,
Yeah, I mean, if the topic comes up, it's worth discussing it to some extent.
Yeah, and something else that I'm curious about. Of course, yeah, we're up against a break here, but I would love to learn how to do something you teach is animal communication. Like, I've been trying to talk to my cat Leo for about 5 years now, and I still don't think I'm getting through. So maybe we can discuss that too when we get back from the break here. And if you guys,
happy to.
I got a message too that a couple of people try to call in and the phones aren't working, so I'm going to reset the phones. And then you can try back, okay? It's 1-800-588-0335. I'll reset the phones during break. We'll be right back.
This is Elle. I listen to Lighting the Void because it's interactive radio with good content, interesting guests, and a humble host, sharing his journey through the esoteric. Hey, Joe Roop. Thanks for having us along for the ride.
Thank you so much for a delightful evening. Well, I got a lot of ground to cover.
Hey, this is No Way Jose, a Northern California Piscean stuck in the Arizona desert. I'm a void walker, and I got the shoes to prove it. So what do I do when my soul yearns to delve deep into the realm of the unknown? I aim my satellite straight into the night sky and catch a smooth ride on the KTLK-DB radio waves. I tune into Lighting the Void with Joe Roop on the Fringe FM.
Joe, Lighting the Void is the best show on the planet. This is Barney, your friend from Facebook. Thank you and all the crew for all you do. Namaste, my friend.
This is Macon from the foothills of North Carolina, and I am a void walker.
G'day, void walkers. This is Lily from down under Australia. The world may be small, the enigma is greater. So let your curiosity take you for a journey with Joe Roop.
Hey, this is V, coming in from Central Maryland, and I am a void walker.
This is Kevin Doherty, a beginner void walker. I'm from Vancouver, BC. I know a little about a lot, and as Leonard Skinner said, I'll guess the rest. I learned a lot from Mr. Roop in the show, and I heard it from the beginning. I knew right then he was going to be a new Art Bell. Thanks for all your shows, and keep it up.
Hey, this is Derek from Mass, a.k.a. the Night Stalker, and I'm a void walker.
This is Mark from Chicago, and I walk the void to ascertain what is consciousness.
My name is Jared Johnson, and I'm from Humboldt County, California. I do not know all the answers to the questions about reality. I do not claim to know the ultimate truth about life. I seek that which has been made hidden as a part of a family of explorers of consciousness. I'm a void walker. Thanks, Joe Root.
We all have that story to tell in our lives. The winds were howling, the ground shook, you could hear rushing water, and then history repeats itself. When there's no power, refrigeration fails, stores with their shelves strip bare, ATMs can't operate, deliveries stop. Then what? These events can last days or weeks. You need a plan. In statements made during recent interviews, FEMA Administrator Brock Long has repeatedly urged all Americans to understand three truths. FEMA is broke, the system is broken. If this is the new normal, Americans can't rely on federal cavalry when disaster strikes. Don't get caught out in the elements empty-handed. Prepare with us by going to preparewiththefringe.com and get your 2-week food supply. 92 servings, 8 food varieties with 25 years shelf life. Normally $137, now only $75. Or get a month's supply, normally $247, now only $147, shipped in one business day. Just go to preparewiththefringe.com or call 888-440-7931. That's 888-440-7931. Get this great offer and be prepared while it lasts.
Okay, here we go. AncientLifeOil.com. AncientLifeOil.com. Now this is for CBD. AncientLifeOil.com. Again, for CBD. Where do I get CBD? AncientLifeOil.com. It's pretty good stuff. Organic, non-GMO. We are the Ferrari of CBDs. AncientLifeOil.com. You know, they say when you mention a person's name 3 times when you first meet, that you're going to remember. So I'd say to you, nice to meet you, AncientLifeOil.com. It's AncientLifeOil.com, right? Nice to know that you help people. AncientLifeOil.com. Think about this. Occasional stress, occasional anxiety, occasional inflammation, occasional stiffness, and intruders that get you down. AncientLifeOil.com. Okay, so I'm going to give you a fact for the day. So Ancient Life Oil does not help you with business deals. Hold on a second. If you feel better, it could help you make a better decision. Okay, I'm wrong. Just remember to go to AncientLifeOil.com.
My name is Jake. I'm from Billings, Montana, and I am a void walker.
Hey, Joe Root. Thanks for lighting the void. This is Janine in the bluegrass of Kentucky, and I am a void walker.
What's up, guys? This is Damien from San Marcos, Texas, and I'm a void walker. I listen to the show to keep myself aligned with the world.
Hi, this is Laura, aka Laura Lavender. I'm from Las Vegas, and I listen to Lighting the Void because it helps me understand some of the strangest experiences I've had. So thanks for all that you do and for always being there for us, Joe.
To call Joe, pick up the phone, dial 1-800-588-0335, toll free from the United States or Canada. You're listening to Lighting the Void Radio.
All right, welcome back to Lighting the Void. I'm your host, Joe Root. Tomorrow night, we're going to be speaking to Agni Nost, and then we're going to be talking about consciousness, more consciousness discussions. And then later on in the week, we're going to have Mary Justina join us, and I believe Nish is coming back as well, so it's going to be a pretty fun week. But tonight, our guest is David Solomon. David, always a fascinating guest to talk to. It has been an interesting conversation tonight, man. It's gone by quick. Usually when things go by quick, I can tell it's pretty compelling stuff. Anytime you talk about magic, it's compelling. All right. So, so before the break, David, I was asking you about animal communication. I swear honestly, this is something you talk about and teach, and I've tried to do this. I've had a couple of guests on the program that discuss it, and I ain't getting through to my cat, man. So, I mean, what am I doing wrong here? What's blocking this communication, you think?
Well, what is the purpose of you talking to your cat, and what have you tried?
Here's the thing. I don't really have like a purpose, so to speak. It's kind of more like, I do have a purpose. I want to be able to talk to animals, man, like Dr. Doolittle. You know, I think it'd be great, but it ain't getting through. The only time, I just know what he wants. He either wants food or he wants his litter box cleaned or he wants outside, and that's it. And so at some point I'm thinking, and he wants to be pet too, obviously, but at some point I'm thinking, I wish I could get him to understand what I'm trying to say, though, you know? And so the purpose itself really is just to communicate with him on a level of understanding that's bigger than what we have now.
Sure. What have you studied?
Well, I haven't really studied any books on it. Like I've taken I had to go. I forget the woman's name, the guest that was on, and I'm so sorry, but you know who she is. And she told me that it was all about vibrations, like getting on the cat's level or something like that. And I did practice what she said, but I got online and looked up some
It doesn't
stuff.
sound like there were very thorough instructions with that.
No, well, it was a
It
long
sounds pretty
time
vague,
ago
to
when
be
I
honest.
talked to her too, honestly, you know, and it's not something I've dedicated my life to as far as study goes, but yeah, I'm
Sure.
I would still.
Well, you know, it is a skill, and what you did learn something. You learned that you don't have an innate talent.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
all that means is you might need to learn the skill. You might need to take the time to learn it. You know, a lot of us hear an idea and think, oh, I could do that idea.
Right.
Well, you would do an experiment. You know, can you do it or not? Do you succeed? Do you fail? And ultimately, if you essentially failed, then all that means is you don't have the skill yet. You need to build it.
Yeah, it's more like I want him to stop jumping on the keyboard. You know, that's my. That's
well, I
kind
mean, there's ways of training pets where
Sure.
you don't have to become an animal communicator to achieve that.
Right.
But you know, if you were to read one really good book on animal communication with like 20 exercises and spend, you know, do each exercise 3 to 5 times or whatever is recommended with like a lot of conviction and depth, you'd probably have some progress. You know, again, we're talking about a somewhat advanced skill here, especially if you don't have like the natural propensity for it. So I think you can build it. The question is, what does it take to build?
Yeah, so yeah, if I remember what she was talking about correctly, was something about emotion or being on a, like if I had let's say I had a bad day and I was angry or something, and that the animal was on a different vibration than I was, and I had to learn how to get down to that animal's vibration before I could even start to communicate with them, because I think she was saying a lot of people think because they're animals that they're lower beings or lower in consciousness, and then that's not it at all. It's just I had to get rid of certain negative vibrations before I could communicate with them. But it's not, I mean, I'm not coming at you in a way where I'm not coming at you, man, so to speak. If you think that, I really want to try to figure it out.
Oh, no, not at all.
You know,
I'm trying to help you learn. I'm trying to help you learn why you haven't succeeded. And all I'm doing is I'm taking the framework from earlier in our call and applying it here.
So do they have?
I'm just asking you so you can reveal the knowledge in yourself. You know, I could tell you, I could train you in how to do animal communication. If you were to go to magicalgoldenage.com, which is how anybody listening can reach me, and click contact, you could email me. I'm also on Facebook at facebook.com/David Magic Solomon with a dot in between each name. I post a lot on there. I do a lot of channelings on there. But you know, for you to understand what it would take to become trained is why I'm responding and leading questions rather than just simply giving you a simple answer. Because I can give you a simple answer, but if I help you deeply internally understand why your success isn't coming, then you'll much more quickly become in a position where you can succeed.
Yeah,
you'll naturally be drawn to figuring it out.
Yeah, I'm just a talk radio host, you know, like we don't really have time to get down and focus on one specific thing too long. People just kind of tune out after that, you know. So it's
right. So, you know, in asking you a couple questions, I'm helping you realize deep down, well, what would it take to become a good animal communicator? And that's it.
I tried the staring thing too, you know, where you stare deeply in their eyes. That didn't work. I think that wigged him out and made him want to attack me, actually. So that didn't really.
Yeah, a lot of animals don't like that.
Yeah, that didn't really work because, and now the last time my cat attacked me, it wasn't good. So I don't want nothing to do with that, you know. So, so would it be best to learn like from you? Say somebody was just starting out. They say, "Hey, I want to work with David, but I'm really a big time beginner." What would you recommend that they do?
You know, it's honestly just a matter of how much time that they have each week. If you have the time to study and practice, you'll make progress. So if somebody were to contact me, I would be happy to work in any area in which I serve. And one phone call is good to learn a little bit of material. But if you really want to build a skill to a level of mastery where you can do it at high proficiency at any time, you want to put in a little bit more effort. And that means talking twice a week. That means doing homework each week. That means like taking it seriously as you would a job skill. That means, giving it the type of dedication that you would for anything that you take really seriously, that you think is important.
Yeah.
So that could mean, 3 to 5 months worth of training to build that skill, but then you have that skill for your entire life.
Yeah, because you know what? That's right.
It goes back to motive.
Yeah, you're right, because I do see this. I think Manly P. Hall talks about this too, where a lot of people hop around, once they want to learn a new skill, right? And they think it's cool, like it's new magic or new magical skill or whatever. And as soon as they get bored or they realize that they have to actually put in some work, they hop to another school. So they just hop around magic schools or teachers or whatever. No one really devotes any time or effort to it. That's kind of a problem too, I think. I mean, I've been guilty of that myself, actually.
Sure.
Okay. So I think out of everything that we talked about tonight, the one thing that I'm really interested in, and I'm really focused on, is manifesting stuff faster. And I know that sounds selfish, but I also look at this like, we're limited in time here. I mean, the average lifespan is what, like 70 something? So that, and I'm an Aries, so I'm a bit impatient, And so if I can figure out how to do things faster, and no, I don't have a book to study right now, but maybe I can, hook up with you and learn that. But I'm sure that's going to take months and months. But what I struggle with that is it morally right? I think that's my upbringing doing that.
I think learning how to communicate with your cat to strengthen your relationship is completely morally right and okay. I don't see anything wrong with it.
No. I'm not talking about the cat thing. Yeah. I thought we moved on from that. What I'm talking about is manifesting things in my life faster, right? Like, manifesting a better life or a better house or a better car, relationships, money, stuff like that. It becomes a moral dilemma. I think
that's completely that's completely ethical. I mean, it's not like you're talking about learning how to steal cars. What we're talking about is you boosting the probability that a certain type of thing is going to happen. And if you'd like to get a new car anyway, you could do more work and make more money. You could network with people of means who are known to give their friends cars as gifts. There's a lot that you could do. So
you don't think there should be, because people get judged for that, right? I mean, I have been, by my own family, because I've talked to them about magic and stuff, but I'm from the South. So there's a lot of people down here that judge me for it. They call me a devil worshiper and stuff like that. But,
well, they're probably not the type of people that you want to share your plans with in that case.
No, I'm done with all that. But it's like, why would you want those things? I mean, you should focus your time on helping your family and your friends. And I said, well, I do that. But I don't feel like I could help people to my fullest capacity if I don't have enough resources to help them with at the same time, But there is some people that have a moral dilemma with it. Like they feel guilty about it, especially when it happens. And I'm like, why? I'm glad you said that, by the way.
Well, if you're one of those people, then that's just some internal work to do on your own system. Yeah. If you're not one of those people, then it's not your responsibility to change how other people think or feel.
Right. So I guess if you want, at magicalgoldenage.com is the website, right? So do you have a Facebook page too that's got a ton of followers on it? How do people find that Facebook page?
It's facebook.com/David Magic Solomon.
David Magic Solomon. All right. And you're not on Twitter or anything like that?
I'm not a fan of Twitter. My Instagram is instagram.com/sorcererdavid. My YouTube is youtube.com/magicisreal. But the best is through my website, Magical Golden Age, because then you can get an email to get reminded of this stuff, which is very important, very useful. You get a lot of free stuff. There's links to all my social media on the bottom of my email. So even if you prefer to not do a lot of email, it's a great way of having everything in one place. But I just say, open up the browser right now and go to your preferred method, Instagram.com/SorcererDavid, MagicalGoldenAge.com, or Facebook.com/DavidMagicSolomon, and they can reach me. And I think it's really delightful to be of service. I really love helping people get very high-level results in their healing and their personal development and in magic. Magic is fun for me. It's an obsession. It's a way of life. And I like to be very real with people. I'm not going to tell anybody they're going to shoot fireballs after 20 minutes because nobody likely is going to be able to do that. But I am going to be able to assess where somebody is and help them get to where they want to be with more speed. And if that's things that are related to money and earning money more quickly or having things that money can buy more quickly, cool. I'm happy to do that. I have no qualms with that unless somebody wants to use their money for, super nefarious purposes, which isn't most people.
Right. Yeah. And you're right about that. Most people have good intentions, right? So a lot of your frequent workshops are money is money, magic and manifestation, the science of magic, creativity, sexuality, and tantra, meditation, superpowers. That's interesting. Tell me a little bit about that. Is there some form of meditation that you do or you teach that kind of, it's like more than what I guess the Headspace app is teaching folks?
Yeah, I mean, Headspace can teach you how to relax and how to be calm and how to focus and probably other things because they add programs all the time. But there's certain high-level abilities that a lot of people have, like controlling their body temperature and their autonomic nervous system, learning how to hold their breath for very long periods of time, learning how to de-stress very, very quickly, learning how to master their chi and heal people or heal animals.
Yeah, that's cool.
There's more, and it's a great talk. It's a great workshop. It's a fun topic, and meditation is a pretty critical foundation of most spiritual paths because it's how well you can focus.
Yeah, it is. And
you need to be able to focus if you want to be able to do really any types of magic.
Right. Yeah. Okay, cool. And see, I'm on the website right now at magicalgoldenage.com. There's also do you have like a text line on here to teach me? It says, teach me real quickly. Please text my personal Google Voice. Is that where, so you can teach stuff pretty quickly
that's really in case of emergency. I really don't prefer that method because I can't really get to people. It's hard to get their information and get in contact. But some people just only want to text and just want to be extremely simple and extremely fast. So again, I try to meet people where they're at. But that being said, it's much better just to email me because I check my email more often. I don't get hit up that often from Google Voice. So, I like being able to give people a good amount of support, and I know myself and I know how I like to help people work.
So your biggest thing when it comes to mentoring though, is for people to realize that this is a real commitment, right? You need to take at least 6 months or 6 to 12 months, to commit to this so you can actually see some real change in your life, right? That's
for anybody who really wants to build a lot of high-level magical abilities, yes. There's a lot that can be achieved in a single session. There's a lot that can be healed. There's a lot of skills, a lot of energy work. If somebody only wants to or only can do one session, then there's a lot of ground we can cover.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, I can't think of anything else other that I wanted to discuss tonight. I mean, we discussed quite a bit. We discussed telepathy, meditation, magic, manifestation, dark magic. I mean, there's a lot on the table here. One thing I didn't ask you about though is divination. Is this something that you regularly practice, or do you find the need for it at all?
I practice it all the time. Divination is the art of seeing into future probable timelines to see what's likely to happen, period. And you could say with certain circumstances, you could say related to a certain topic, like love, relationships, health, money, etc. But I think divination is simply using psychic abilities. And we all have psychic abilities. We can all access psychic potentials. So there are certain techniques.
Okay.
There are certain techniques which have some advantages. And I think there's a lot of techniques which are great, but I've gotten to a level where I can get a fair amount of data on something that, for all practical purposes hasn't happened yet. And I think that's a great thing to do in life. You don't want to focus on that too much. It's very easy to get lost in it. And Amma, who's a very lovely, well-respected spiritual leader, has temples, has great meditations, a lot of people who learn from her, very non-demanding, super chill. Does the guru thing for people who want it, but isn't, all about that. She is a great person to learn from. And she says astrology can be addictive, so you want to be careful with it.
Yeah, I have one of those like.
So just like that, I would say. Sorry for the pause. I would say the same thing about divination.
Right. Yeah, because I have one of those analytical minds, and astrology, I get lost in it. Now I forget that I'm even supposed to do things sometimes because I guess you're right. It really depends on what we want to focus on, and once we figure out what we want to focus on and commit to it, then we can learn, a lot better that way. It's just I'm so interested in so many things, I get scatterbrained, brother. You know what I mean? So that's a problem. But look, thanks for coming on the show. I really appreciate it, man. It was the second time we had a talk. It was a great discussion. It was good speaking with you again. I hope everybody gets the book too. It's a great book. I've got the audio version of it. Magic is Real. And are you planning on writing any more books or doing a second version of that maybe?
Yeah, I actually have the next two books already written. I really love giving quality material that people can internalize and learn from. And writing a book and publishing a book is a pretty time-intensive ordeal. And I found that based on how people consume content, a lot more prefer it through video, through audio. So most of my content creation lately has been focusing on those two things on my Facebook, on my Instagram, on my website. That being said, books are a great way for people to, get a lot of information at once. And part of it is also just, basic limitations. I'm really devoted to being of service at very high level ways. This isn't traditionally a lucrative field, so I am building a business around it. I charge for sessions. I have an online school that people can pay to access material, and I love this work. But until like a significant patron comes in, or say a lot of people decide they would like to work with me for a year, then I'll really have the means and the time space to spend a lot more time, say, writing and publishing a second book to a high level of quality. Because I don't just want to publish material that I've already written. I want to up it to the level where I'm at currently. So that's the long answer. Sorry, it was a bit verbose.
No, thank you. I mean, thank you for giving that and letting us know how we can do those things. I'm sure there's folks interested in that. And thanks again for coming on Lighting the Void, man. It's been a real pleasure having you on the show.
Yeah, brother, my pleasure. It's really an honor to be here and to be of service. I really love it, and I appreciate talking with you.
Yeah, I appreciate talking to you too. Thanks again.
Sure thing. Good night, Joe.
Good night, brother. All right, guys, that's David Solomon. Go to the website, Magical Golden Age, magicalgoldenage.com. And tomorrow night, I don't really know how to pronounce this guy's name. It's Agni Nost. I know it's going to be a cool conversation. He hit me up on Facebook today and was like, hey, are we still on for tomorrow night? We definitely are. Pacho, I want to give you a shout out too, brother. You're doing a fantastic job. And if you guys can, man, like really go to, Pacho, he's running the Instagram page too for Lighting the Void. So give him a follow over there. And if you guys haven't yet, give us a follow on Pinterest as well, because I'm getting interested in that, like putting up pictures as well. And tomorrow night, we're going to be talking about the mysteries of the universe and its simplicity. We're going to talk about consciousness, cosmic consciousness. I don't know if it's so much as manifestation, more about just learning about all the energies that are going on. And then later on in the week, everybody's got all these names I can't pronounce. We're going to be speaking with Navai, who's a wandering witch, I believe. And then we're going to have the New Moon special with Mary Ducina. And then Nish will be on the following week, which is Monday. So next Monday, we'll have Nish back on, and then Brian Scott. And on something I'm really looking forward to is next Friday. Next Friday, we're going to have J.M. DeBoard on and Ian Wilson at the same time. So if you're into dream work, which I know a lot of you are, we're gonna be getting really deep into that. And here's another one too that's coming up this month. Actually, it's not this month, the first week of next month, I believe. And it's not solidified yet, but I'm pretty sure it's going to happen, is Daniel Joseph is coming back. And I think it's been a long time, almost a year since we've had him on the show. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to speaking with him again. And thank you all for coming out tonight. We'll be back tomorrow night, same time, same channel. Big shout out to Pacho, Don, let's see, Amandala, Jeremy Scott, all of you guys in the Fringe FM chat, Eric Markham. Please don't copy the show without written permission. And the music was by Chronox, and his website is at chronoxofficial.com. We'll see you guys tomorrow night. Good night.
On this program do not necessarily reflect those of the Fringe FM, KTLK Digital Broadcasting, its sponsors, affiliates, or staff. Listener discretion is advised.